welcome everyone again to another episode of WRPL, All Things Consumed, a podcast where we talk about all the things we are watching, reading, playing, and listening to. I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
How are you doing, Steve?
I'm good. Speaking of consuming stuff, just jumping right in. When was the last time you had a Twinkie?
It's been a while. I think even when they were discontinued and then came back, I haven't had one since.
Oh, well, I was at work, and I saw these pumpkin spice Twinkies.
God, they'll pumpkin spice anything.
Yeah, pumpkin spice is all over the place. So
disgusting.
I was like, I don't want that, but I'm kind of feeling nostalgic. Let me see a Twinkie. I haven't had a Twinkie since I was a kid, I feel like. So I went and bought a box of regular Twinkies, and I had the first one, and it just felt a little dry, but I was like, okay, it's not bad. It's a tasty little treat. And then I looked at my hands, and it's just like immediately covered in oil or grease or whatever it is.
Greasy as fuck.
And I just thought, that's disgusting. So I had 3 more, and then went back to work.
3 more packs of 2, right?
Yeah. So I had 4 Twinkies that day, and I don't think I'll ever get them again. But I'm glad I got them just for my own intellectual curiosity.
I like Hostess stuff. It's better than fucking Tasty Cake. I'm not a big fan of Tasty Cake. If you don't know what Tasty Cake is, it's more of a local thing. But I love Ding Dongs and...
Yeah, you do.
I like their cupcakes. Their fruit pies will blow a Tasty Cake fruit pie out of the water. But yeah, Twinkies and...
What about their cream pies?
I love a good cream pie. I just, as long, like when it's dripping down your chin, it's just amazing.
Throw it in the microwave, heat it up a little bit. Just oozes right out.
Yeah, I don't love Twinkies, but I really don't like Snowballs. I know you won't like Snowballs because the pink ones, because it's coconut, but
coconut's gross.
Coconut's great, but I don't love Snowballs. All right, so I want to start with saying I feel redeemed. Last week we talked about Malignant and how everybody in the Twitter sphere just thinks it is the best thing, and I think they're all just bandwagoning off of each other because they don't want to be left out of, oh my god, I love Malignant from day one, and you're crazy for not liking it. But 2 of my favorite YouTube channels, Red Letter Media and Good Bad Flicks, both had almost the exact same thoughts of like, what the hell is this? Is this supposed to be funny? The Red Letter Media had the best quote for it and said, if laughter could cure cancer, this movie could heal itself. And that is just perfect. So I just want to say, take that, Twitter people I don't know in real life. You're dumb. Okay, well, let's get into today. We have a couple of topics, a couple of movies, a couple of TV shows. Our main topic of the day is we're going to recap the final season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Sad to see it go. One of my favorite Michael Schur shows. I mean, it's hard. We'll get to it. We'll talk about it later. So, what have you been consuming? What do you want to talk about first?
So first is something I haven't consumed, but I definitely plan to. What's that face?
This isn't what we will consume. It's what we are consuming.
Okay, fine.
You could talk about it. Go for it.
Well, I don't know if you know this.
Because some of my things have only partially consumed. I'm working my way through the meal.
Got it. So something I'm excited about. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings.
I don't think you've mentioned that.
Nope, not once. So this past week, audiobooks for Lord of the Rings have come out, but this time they're narrated by Andy Serkis, and I've been reading the reviews, and they all say he's great, and he does different voices for characters and everything, and just, I love Andy Serkis, and I've read the first 2 books. I don't really remember them that well, and I tried reading the third, and I just, for whatever reason, stopped. So I think if I had something to listen to, I could probably consume these books in a more enjoyable way than if I was reading them, because reading them is kind of not as fun as watching the films.
For sure. He does. I love audiobooks. There have been some that are Batman stories where they actually put in music and sound effects, and you have a whole cast, and it's like reading or listening to a comic being read, someone going like pow pow boom boom. It's very cool. Fan of that. Also a fan of large casts doing audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fine with a singular reader. But when it comes to things like Lord of the Rings, and it bugged me a lot with Game of Thrones, you have a huge cast of characters. You need a cast to fill those roles. Lord of the Rings isn't as bad because there's it's mostly male characters, so having a male reader is not a big deal. But the dude who did all the Game of Thrones ones, he's this old man. He's dead now, so I hope they redo him. But he would do the voices of Arya and Sansa and stuff. But this old man doing a little girl's voice just sounds like a little old lady, and it's like it takes you out completely. And so when you have things like a movie or TV show where you've had a cast of these people, bring them in. Let them read these lines. Why just stick Andy Serkis with the whole job? So, I mean, that's cool. I think of all the versions, that's the one I'd probably listen to. Mm-hmm. But one person for every character, not a fan.
Well, I don't know if I've ever actually listened to an audiobook, so I will give you my thoughts on my first time after I listen to them. But the problem is, each of them are like $40, so I think you can buy the collection for like $120. And I thought maybe I'll get Audible, and at least that way I can get the first one for free, and then do a subscription, and maybe I think it can be cheaper that way.
One a month or something.
One a month, yeah.
I don't know. Why don't you sponsor us, Audible, and we'll get your plans right.
So we'll see what happens with that, but I'm looking forward to listening to my first book.
Okay. Well, then I'll start off with things that I've actually consumed. This is a show. It was its third season that just ended. It's called Miracle Workers, Oregon Trail. The first season, well, I should say, each season is the same cast, same writers and everything, but a completely different story. So the first season was Daniel Radcliffe is working in heaven, and Steve Buscemi is God, and God wants to unmake the earth and make a new planet because he feels like he kind of messed up and he can't live up to his brother and sister who have made these utopia planets, far, far away, and he's kind of the black sheep of the family. So he wants to unmake it, and Daniel Radcliffe is like, well, what if we have a bet, and if we can do this thing in a week's time, you won't destroy the earth. And so the bet is to get these two super dorks to fall in love, or at least, and it's like, well, how do you quantify that? Let's just say we have to get them to kiss. So all the miracle workers are manipulating physics and stuff and causing, an accident to happen. So they would have to turn down a different street so they can meet at the same pizza place and then have a little meet cute and stuff. And it's like they try and God's throwing wrenches in the works because he's a big moron too. And it was pretty funny. And season 2 was the Dark Ages, and Daniel Radcliffe is the prince of a evil king who's all about murder and stuff, and he's a very precious dainty boy and doesn't like murder. And Steve Buscemi is a peasant and has kids and stuff like that. And it's just how the king and the peasants' lives interact. Also very funny. So season 3 is Oregon Trail. Daniel Radcliffe is a priest who he's the priest for a small town, and it's times are tough, crops aren't growing, they're getting worse and worse every year. So they decide we're going to head west and get to Oregon, and they meet up with Steve Buscemi's character named Benny the Teen, instead of Billy the Kid, and and he's an old guy, and it's he got that name when he was younger and stuff, but he's the most ruthless outlaw out there, and he's running from a bounty hunter played by Karen Sony, which he's been in a lot of stuff, but you've probably seen him before. He's just a very funny Indian. Oh, he's in Deadpool.
Yeah, I was going to say the taxi driver from Deadpool.
He's Dopinder in Deadpool. He's very funny. And some of the other cast, Geraldine Viswanathan, yeah. She's been in a few things. Probably the thing most people would know her from is Bad Education with Hugh Jackman.
Okay.
She's the student that breaks it. The character that doesn't actually exist in real life. She is married to John Bass, who was in the Baywatch movie and a really funny little show called Hollywood, Florida. He always plays a big dumbass. He's a very funny character. Like they're married and they're rich and they also want to go to Oregon. And so it's just kind of every episode is, well, when you have to cross a river or meet with the natives, and what if it snows and you have to do cannibalism and stuff like that. And then, of course, Benny the Teen's daughter is trying to become the most ruthless outlaw and get out of her father's shadow, and so she's trying to kill him. And it's just a fun little 10-episode season. Each season is 10 episodes, and everyone's so likable. And I'm not tied to Daniel Radcliffe because of Harry Potter. It's not my thing. But he's so funny in these. He's just like a really likable goofball. And he has a scene in this where he drinks like snake oil and he starts acting all crazy and drunk and stuff. And he gets on stage and does a kind of a drag strip show for She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain. Mm-hmm. And it's all like very suggestive. And he's wearing these little like assless chaps. And this dude, he's cut. This guy is buff. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying like, we need Daniel Radcliffe as Wolverine because he's perfect. He's just a tiny little dude, but he's buff, and like he goes for it in the scene, and it is so funny. And so, if you are very thirsty for Daniel Radcliffe, check out Miracle Workers: Oregon Trail. It's on TBS. Season 3 just ended.
Or the internet.
So I'm
sure there's some Rule 34 or whatever it's called.
Sure, Rule 34
of plenty of Harry Potter stuff. Hot. Anyway.
All right, so what have you been watching or reading or playing or listening to?
I finished book 2 of the First Law Trilogy. I don't know if I really talked about book 1.
The Farseer Trilogy?
No, I know I talked about the Farseer.
Okay.
This is the First Law Trilogy. It's a different...
Oh, but it's in that universe.
No.
Oh!
It's a totally different world.
Okay.
The First Law Trilogy is written by Joe Abercrombie, and it is a fantasy series about basically this cast of characters who who all meet up, and they're all from different places in the world, and they all hate each other, but they come together to try and get this thing that will hopefully end the wars that are going on and essentially save the world from this evil rising. It sounds very, generic fantasy sort of stuff.
Sure.
And in that sense it is. But all the characters are really fun, and the book 1 is them sort of, you follow them individually, and then by the end of the book they're coming together to form this team. And book 2 is them sort of becoming a family in a way. At the start of the book 2, they all essentially hate each other, except for one guy who's trying to like be the one who like breaks the ice for everybody.
How big is this group?
It is 6 people, but really only 4 are main characters. Mm-hmm. So the guy who is leading this quest, Baez, he's essentially the greatest wizard in the world. And then there's Logan Ninefingers, who's sort of this Aragorn ranger kind of guy, but he's more of like a barbarian. Like he's ugly because he's been in a ton of fights and he's scarred. And there's moments where he like blacks out and becomes into this like barbaric rage and like doesn't know who anyone is around him and will just kill mercilessly. And there's parts in this book where they describe him like just cutting dudes in half, and it's so fucking bloody and awesome. And then there's a character, Pharaoh, who's a black woman who comes from sort of like this deserty land called the Badlands, and she's actually, you find out she has demon blood in her, because before in this world there were demons that roamed the earth, and then they were all cast out by this grand wizard kind of thing. Not a grand wizard. By this powerful wizard. And she's just basically on a revenge mission. She's just a total fucking psycho who just has no love in her heart, and she's just not a pleasant person to be around. But in the second book, she's sort of, she's still that person, but she is a little bit more okay with working with this group. And then there's another character who's sort of this preppy boy who grew up in the Union, which is essentially the Gondor of the world, the the place, the group that sort of runs a big chunk of the world, and he is, like I said, just kind of like a rich boy who had like everything handed to him, and he like climbed the ranks, but he's never even like been to war. And then in book 2, it's him getting into his first fight and having to kill people and learning lessons, like there's more to this world, and he doesn't want to be this leader of command. He just like wants to live a simple life. Like this whole fighting thing is just not for him, even though he was sort of raised in this world, whereas you train to fight and command and, you know, lead armies and stuff. And he's like, nah, this shit isn't for me. And just them forming their bonds has been a real pleasant read, as opposed to the first book where like everyone is kind of a douche. But you grow to like these characters, and I'm now going to start book 3, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it ends.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are they very long books?
I think the first 2 books are about 500 pages, and this last one is 600.
Okay.
So a standard novel.
Sure. Are they older, newer?
I think they came out in 05, 06, 07.
Okay.
Something like that.
Cool.
And I know that this author has other books in this world sort of set, you know, sometime in the future where more mechanical things are going on. There's magic, but it's not a ton of magic. It's very low fantasy, but there is creatures and one sort of giant dude with tattoos that I guess sort of make him unkillable. Like they just stab a spear right through his arm and he just pulls it out and the wound's not there. Like there's plenty of fantasy stuff in it, but it doesn't feel like there's not just like casting spells everywhere and just, you know, it's nonsense. It's mostly just bloody, just hand-to-hand combat, just slicing off heads and stuff. It's, if you like violent books, it's violent.
Cool.
But not in a grotesque way.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah. And book 2, a lot more sex. not that like sex is anything important. It's not like they're describing in great detail. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a lot more people hooking up in book 2. So a lot more action, a lot more sex, a lot more character work. Like book 2 surpassed the first book, which I enjoyed, but book 2 is a lot more fun.
So I have 2 shows that I've been watching that have not finished yet. They are still on the air. First one is a comedy. It's called Wellington Paranormal. It is the cops that were in What We Do in the Shadows when they had to be investigated, investigating their house, and they're hypnotizing them to make them not see anything. Well, they have their own show. There's actually 4 seasons, or at least the 4th season should be out this year, but there's only 2 seasons available in America right now. Same actors. It's Sergeant O'Leary and Sergeant Minogue. And they get drafted into the paranormal side of the police force, which is led by the captain, who's all about this sort of stuff. He has like a little secret room for all the things. It's very, very dry, and I actually had to watch it with subtitles because their accents were so damn thick, but it's very funny. If you like What We Do in the Shadows, I highly recommend it. It's on HBO Max. The other show is Impeachment, American Crime Story. Mm-hmm. So they've done the O.J. Simpson trial. They did the assassination of Gianni Versace. And this one is about Bill Clinton's impeachment, Monica Lewinsky, Linda Tripp, that whole thing. And it's only 2 episodes in. New episodes are on Tuesday on FX, and I believe it's on Hulu as well. Very good show, just like all the seasons so far of American Crime Story. It's well acted, well paced, really keeps you on the edge of your seat even if you already kind of know what's happening. And the 2 standout performances, like once again, Sarah Paulson, killing it like always, and she's playing Linda Tripp, and they don't look anything like each other, but they put a big old prosthetic nose on her, give her this ugly ass wig and some frumpier clothes, and I
apologize. I was, I think, 7 when all this was going down.
Yeah. So
who's Linda Tripp?
Linda Tripp. Okay. Give you a quick recap. She worked in the White House, and she worked under multiple administrations, but she was kind of pissed off that the Clintons got in, and she's all huffy about it. And she has an idea for a book. The publisher is kind of like, well, everybody's written their Clinton kissed me inappropriate book and their own side of the story. And she wanted to remain anonymous, and they're like, we can't do that because no one wants to hear a story of an anonymous person because it could be all bullshit. And so they reject her story. She comes across Monica Lewinsky, a 24-year-old woman who had just recently been kicked out of the White House and is forced to work in the Pentagon, which is where Linda Tripp is working, was also kind of forced to be there. I guess it's like the shit place to work. Nobody wants to work at the Pentagon. They become friends, and she kind of lets the beans spill. She kind of lets the beans spill about she's seeing someone in Clinton's administration, but can't say who, doesn't want to get in trouble. And she kind of it could be Bill Clinton, but just kind of, wait for his call. He's very busy. I know he's campaigning with the president, so he's not going to be able to call you, every day. And eventually Monica Lewinsky says, it's the fucking president. I don't know if I can make this work. And so she goes here's my here's my book. And it hasn't quite happened yet, but she will start recording their phone calls. There's one scene, very clever of her. She's like, wow, Monica, you have a really good mind. You can remember dates and times and stuff really well. Maybe there's a pattern with why Bill Clinton isn't calling you. Oh, let me get onto Excel. And so she starts logging all these times that she went to a fundraiser to see him, when they, hooked up in the Oval Office and things like that. And she's just logging it all to find a pattern. And she kind of does. And it's like, oh, look, every 2 weeks he calls you after XYZ or whatever. But she's really just documenting all that information for herself. So then she starts recording phone calls and things, and will eventually come to blow it up and ruin kind of ruin Monica's life and Clinton administration. The other standout performance is, I was shocked when I heard who they cast for Bill Clinton. Do you know?
Yeah, Clive Owen.
Clive Owen. And I was like, no, Clive Owen is way too handsome to be playing Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was I guess a handsome president compared to all other presidents until Obama came around, but he's not a very handsome man. But once he puts that little Arkansas drawl on and they put that fake nose and give him the gray hair, he nails it. He is an excellent Bill Clinton, and I'm loving every second of it.
Sounds good. I never saw the OJ trial, and it's been on Netflix, and I've been trying to work up the nerve to just bite the bullet and watch it, because I'm sure it's great, and I'm sure I'm going to like it.
Fantastic. So good.
I did watch the assassination of Gianni Versace one, and I did like that one quite a bit, and thought Darren Criss was a fantastic psycho.
I was very surprised with it. I didn't think I was going to give a shit, but I was like, well, got to trust the showrunners. It'll probably be just as good, and it was very good.
And for this Bill Clinton one, I like Beanie Feldstein, who's Monica Lewinsky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Everything she's been in, I think she's a real fun actress, and I don't think I've ever seen her do drama. It's mostly been comedy stuff. I mean, I guess she was in Lady Bird, which I guess is more...
Was she in Lady Bird?
Yeah, she was Saoirse Ronan's best friend.
Oh, okay.
Which I guess could be both a comedy and a drama.
Yeah.
So. But I'd be interested to see how she...
She's great, too. She's, I don't really look at her and see Monica Lewinsky, but close enough, It's not going to be perfect. Monica Lewinsky isn't really have a unique feature. She was always just a fat chick. That's what they always called her in the news. It was ridiculous. Yeah, she wasn't skinny, but she wasn't a fat chick. And I think Monica Lewinsky is really hot. Ever since those the trials, because it happened in between 94. Wait, he got reelected in 2000. I'm sorry, 96. So it was around there. So I was 15 at the time. And yeah, Monica Lewinsky's hot.
Yeah, I saw her, I think, a year ago, talk to John Oliver or something. I know she came out, and now she just openly kind of talks about it and everything. She's just at the time it was real hard because it was, sort of birth of the internet and everything, and just everyone had an opinion, and it was the biggest story in the world, and just hearing how it was fat and lie and just like there's all this stuff because whenever it's like you're going after the president or whatever, it's always going to be bad, and just all the how shitty she felt for a long time, and now she just kind of like leans into it and just like, yeah, this is my story, and she like talks about it openly and her story, and you know, she seems like a very cool, smart woman and who has a real good sense of humor about the whole thing now.
Sure.
But I imagine it's got to like suck that now here's a show.
I think she helped with the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think like they really wanted her take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure she's prepared for it either way, but I mean, I guess also for everyone just involved who is part of that story with the Clintons and everybody, just like the story that obviously like no one's really forgotten, but like doesn't talk about anymore, and now it's going to be this
unless
huge...
you're Republican, that we will never forget.
Yeah. But now the show's going to be... This is going to be Emmy-winning show, and it's going to be talked about for the next 6 months, and it's just going to be more fuel for the fire for everything going on, and it's like, I'm sure like everyone in this who's part of it is just like, I wish I don't want to hear about this shit again.
For his daughter, Chelsea Clinton, and it's just like, oh my God, because she's born the same day as me, but she's just a year older, so I always like had a special connection with Chelsea Clinton. I know, it's stupid, but I feel bad for her because it's just like, here we go again. I was just like 16 years old, 17 years old, having to hear about like my dad's infidelity and getting blown in the Oval Office. I'm like, I don't want to do it again. Once again, it's an excellent show. Hopefully they'll stick the landing. They got probably 6 episodes to go. They're usually about 8, I think. So.
Do you know if they've announced what the next...
I don't think so. Because I've heard they were going to do JonBenet Ramsey, and I've heard they were going to do something about Katrina.
Oh, yeah.
But who knows? They decided to go with this instead.
JonBenet the penis guy?
No, that's Lorena Bobbitt.
Oh, that's right.
And Lorena and John Wayne Bobbitt. JonBenet Ramsey, she was the little like beauty pageant whose parents killed her.
Oh.
Allegedly killed her, I guess. I don't want to get sued or whatever, but it was totally the parents. I mean, still considered an unsolved crime and stuff, but no. I don't watch much of the American Horror Story, which horror is up my alley. I love that. And there's only one season that I've liked from beginning to end. Every other season I've watched, which isn't a bunch.
Which one was it?
Cult.
Oh, okay.
Excellent. It's all about the Trump fanatics and thinking he's more than just a man and stuff, and it's just really, really good. All the other seasons I've watched, they start off excellent, and they turn to crap. They have moments that they shine, but they're so unfocused, and I haven't even bothered picking up anything since, like, Poughkeepsie, and I only watched a few episodes of that and had to turn it off because it was so bad. So it's just so strange that these American crime story shows are so well made and focused. And I guess it's because it's based off a true story. Maybe it's easier to write.
Yeah.
But when you have an idea like, a crazy freak show, cool. There's a lot of stuff you can do. And then it's just like, the ghost of Halloween with a face on the back of his head that kills circus freaks. I don't even remember what happened. Just bad shit. Forget American Horror Story. And I hear the anthology one, which I thought that was cool. Every episode is his own little hour-long story. Cool. Some of them are 2-parters or whatever, but I hear they are like embarrassingly bad. So,
like most horror stuff.
Oh. All right. What else you got?
All right. So I watched a movie recently. It's a movie I've seen before. I watched The Karate Kid. I haven't watched The Karate Kid in a long time, but we talked about it on the podcast. I've been watching Cobra Kai and I've enjoyed that. And my fiance has never seen any of the Karate Kids. So I was like, okay, well, let's check out the first one. And I gotta say, I don't know if it really holds up for me. Like, it's perfectly fine, but it's a little over 2 hours. And
it is long.
It's kind of long. And it's a very 80s movie with, like, these bullies and 80s fashion and, like, classic 80s soundtrack and everything. Which, like, isn't necessarily, like, a bad thing. It just feels dated. And honestly, The Karate Kid just feels like 2 scenes that became iconic while the rest of the movie was just like, okay. Like if these 2 scenes weren't in it, I don't know if it would have ever
wax on, wax off, and the crane kick.
And the crane kick, yeah, essentially. Because like the fight choreography is not all that great. And you get a little bit of Mr. Miyagi's backstory, and I don't recall Karate Kid 2 or 3 or next Karate Kid.
Mr. Miyagi backstory is heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's great stuff. It's like, that's a character who I would love to see more of, and if they did a Mr. Miyagi TV show like they did with Cobra Kai, but like his younger years, because they've like developed Mr. Miyagi's backstory in Cobra Kai a lot too, talking about like him growing up in Okinawa and like learning Miyagi-Do karate and everything, and his dad was a fisherman who taught him like how to fish and how to fight and all this other stuff, and like,
he had to like join World War II or the Korean War or something.
Yeah, I think it was World War II.
Oh yeah, he had to like he was on the American side and
he was on the American side fighting for the Americans, and then his wife and child died in a Japanese internment camp. Like that's so interesting, and just like there was only one scene which should have been like the whole emotional crux of the movie, but it just kind of like washed over. It's just like, okay, like here's why this guy lives alone and like is kind of just like a hermit in LA for some reason. But and then it's just like the bullies aren't interesting, and then you meet Kreese, who's the teacher of the Cobra Kai, and he's just kind of a dick, and for like the only explanation for him being a jerk is you kind of see his picture on the wall of him like in the Vietnam War or whatever, and so he's just like this
came back fucked up,
like a lot of which like they explored in the TV show, which is like an actually really cool backstory, but in the movie it's just like, oh, he's just a dick for no reason, and it's
he's
just
an
like
80s villain.
He's an 80s villain,
bad for bad.
So like there's a lot of stuff in this that isn't great. Like it's a fun family movie, and the wax on wax off stuff is great, and the final fight is kind of boring, but like, and the other problem is in the movie they even established that because you first see Mr. Miyagi doing the crane kick, and then Daniel is kind of like, oh, what were you doing? He's like, oh, crane style, and he's like, does the move work? He's like, oh, it's unblockable. It's like, it's just a kick. You can easily block the crane kick. That doesn't make sense. Yeah,
and kicks to the face are illegal in the final fight, and he wins with a kick to the face.
Yeah, which they talk about thoroughly through the show. Like that's the whole thing. Like at the end of the Karate Kid, Johnny Lawrence hands Daniel the trophy. He's like, you're right, LaRusso, and then he like walks off, and the movie pretty much just like cuts with like a smile from Mr. Miyagi, and that's the end of the movie. So just classic 80s happy ending. But in the show, he's just like, that motherfucker beat me illegally. They said, no kicks to no punches to the face or anything, and he beat me with a punch to the face. Yeah, so that's the fun thing about the show, is about perspective and everything. But Karate Kid is just, I think it's just okay. Like I get why it was popular, but I don't think it really holds up. I think it's a fun movie to watch when you're younger and you're you can watch an older movie and still enjoy it. But like once you're an adult, if you watch it, I don't think it really, like if you're 30 years old and you watch Karate Kid for the first time, you're going to be like, okay. You're not going to see why it was special. You got to see it when you're a kid, when like karate is cool. And I think, yeah, I mean, by no means do I think Ralph Macchio is a terrible actor or anything. Like I think he plays that character well, and as this sort of fish out of water, being from New Jersey. New Jersey. New Jersey, moving to LA, and then Mr. Miyagi's also, in a sense, a fish out of water. And here's these two people who like don't really have anyone, and they find each other, and watching their relationship sort of develop. And it's like, watching the whole thing, I was just like, man, I wish. Like the greatest thing about this movie is Mr. Miyagi. And if you've never seen Community, there's an episode of Community where they do the play of the Karate Kid, and it's so good because the whole bit is how the Karate Kid isn't about Ralph Macchio. The Karate Kid is about Mr. Miyagi and his tragic backstory and his, everything. Because watching that movie, I was like, Mr. Miyagi is the nicest person in the world. He's such a great character. He's like, he gives Daniel a car and becomes his father figure to him when he really, and it's like they're each other's best friends in a time when they both needed a best friend, and I wanted more of that relationship. So I'm planning on watching 2 and 3 because I don't remember 2 and 3 at all, really.
Yeah, I would definitely like to watch 2, 3, and 4 again because I actually have a copy of Karate Kid Part 2 on VHS in my room right now. I happened to borrow it from a friend when I was living in Vegas. Like the whole series, or I was planning to do the whole series, and then I packed it up and moved, and it's like a nice case, and it was part of like a set, and I feel really bad that like I took the middle movie of his Karate Kid trilogy. So if you want, do you have a VCR? Do you want to borrow Karate Kid Part 2 on VHS?
I think we have a VCR, but I don't know. I think it doesn't work.
Oh, okay. 2 picks up like right at like they're walking to the car from the championship, and then the rival dojo comes out like, you motherfuckers, and then he like goes to. It was actually a deleted scene from the first movie. It was going to end with Reese like going to attack Mr. Miyagi, and he like dodges and punches the glass of of a car.
Yeah, I thought
that's the beginning of part 2.
Oh, that's the beginning of part 2.
It was going to
I know that scene happened.
It was going to be the end of part 1, but they
okay.
thought they would end it on something a little more.
Got it.
Hopeful. Yeah. Are you going to watch 4?
Well, the thing is, 2 and 3 are on Netflix. I don't think 4 is on Netflix.
Okay.
So if 4 becomes available somewhere, maybe, because I am interested, just because I saw that movie once, probably when I was 10, maybe. So the only part I remember is Mr. Miyagi catching an arrow in his hand, and I thought like, oh, damn, that's cool. But I don't remember who her bully was or what the overall story was, or like why he cared.
Thing,
yeah.
I don't remember anything except it's with
Hilary Swank,
who I do not like.
Yeah.
So kind of hard for me to go back to that. But that'd be cool if they brought her back for the show, the TV show.
They said they're not ruling anything out.
Because I know,
but
like,
they haven't confirmed
the
it yet.
girlfriend is like more than likely going to be in the next season.
The girlfriend
from
Elizabeth Shue?
Yeah.
No, she was in season 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe this was.
So she came back, and then his love interest from The Karate Kid Part 2 was also in season 2 or 3.
Okay.
So they brought in pretty much everyone who's been in the movies except for Hilary Swank and
Mr. Miyagi.
the guy who was like Kreese's second in command. He had like the ponytail. I think he's like the main villain in 3. I think, but they've hinted that he's going to be back in 4. Okay. Like I think he's on like promotional posters and stuff.
So what season are you on? You've watched it all?
I watched it all. So there's been 3 seasons that have aired. Season 4 I think premieres in November, December.
Okay. So did you know, probably, but you know the kid in the first movie where he's like, put him in a body bag,
yep.
Yeah! He's the one that dies.
Yep.
And they put him in a body bag? Hilarious.
I mean, it's sad because he died in real life. Like, that was his last thing he acted in.
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah, like, when he had cancer on the show, he, like, literally had cancer. Or I don't know if it's cancer, but something, like, he was on his way out. And so, like, that's how they send him off. Which is, like, funny, but also, like, kind of sad. Because they were just like, he doesn't have much time left. Let's bring him in for the show, and they kill him off because they know he's not going to come back. And it's a nice moment where him and his buddies like hang out and they're like riding motorcycles together, and flash it back to the first movie where they're all on their dirt bikes and everything. Like, they're a cool group, and they even like get in a bar fight and just like, oh, look at these Cobra Kais in their 50s just fighting dudes at the bar and everything. It was a very sweet episode and done really well. I just thought like that's kind of funny that the guy who said put him in a body bag, like the last shot of the episode is him getting put in a body bag. I was like, Jesus Christ.
I think if I was an actor, I'd be like, hey, if I die in the middle of production, do whatever, don't try to honor my legacy or anything. If you need to digitally put my face on someone to finish the movie, go for it. You want to say I die?
If Weekend at Bernie's me, you just
whatever. I don't care. Just like don't think like it'll be disrespectful if we like how are they going to handle Black Panther 2? I'm assuming they're going to say T'Challa dies. But then I know that's going to piss off a lot of people. It's like, oh, why
they're going to do the Paul Walker thing and just say, oh, we need him to. He's going to go live a peaceful life in some peaceful kind of jungle.
Fork in the road, and he looks over, and it's Groot.
It's been a long day. I can't sing.
Okay, that. So I know back in the day, or back in a previous episode, I said Paul Hauser is in it, and that he's considered one of the most annoying characters. Is that true? He plays like Scorpion or something like that.
Stingray. He's sort of the most oddly placed character in the sense that this whole dojo is filled with high schoolers, and he's a 30-some-year-old man.
Okay.
And he even like brings it, like they have a house party where there's all these teens drinking stuff, and he like brings a date, and she's like, oh, I thought we were going to your friend's house. And he's like, yeah, this is my friend's house. So it's just like this awkward thing of, him being there. But he's only in it for one season, and he's really used very limitedly. I would not say he's annoying by any means. It's just an odd choice to have him there, but he doesn't overstay his welcome, or he doesn't have any cringy lines. He's not like hitting on the teenage girls in the dojo or anything. He's just a chubby dude who wanted to like kick ass because he grew up in the 80s too, or loves 80s stuff. I can't remember.
Okay.
But
all right, so we both watched a show that just premiered like last week.
I believe so.
Yeah. First 3 episodes up on Hulu. This is an FX show, but exclusively on Hulu.
It's really?
Yeah, it's not on FX. You can't DVR it. You can't on demand. It's an FX Hulu exclusive.
Interesting.
It's Why the Last Man. What is your history with Why the Last Man?
So I've been aware of this project for a long time because I feel like they've been trying to make Why the Last Man the TV show or film for a decade now. A lot of the film websites where I get my news have talked about it. They're like, Why the Last Man in production or in whatever. They've been pitching the show for a long time, and it's finally here. I'd never read the comics. I don't know how this story ends or anything really about it, so I was going in essentially blind, other than the fact I know it's about the last man on Earth in a world full of women.
Yeah. So for those who don't know what this show is, Why the Last Man is the story of something that happens. We don't know if it's a disease, if it's an attack, but world over, all the men just start bleeding from the face and die.
4 billion people die in the span of 5 minutes.
Yep. And so the only people left are the women, and they're scraping by, trying to get things, trying to make the government still functional, trying to get survivors out of cities, trying to get water to continue to get filtered and electricity to everybody's house. And they're just kind of having a hard run of it. And there's one man left named Yorick, who happens to be the president's son. And they are trying to keep him secret because, pandemonium would happen if they found that there's a single dude left. But other people have seen him, so I'm sure word's going to spread somewhat that there's a man like the Asian family that saw him.
Yeah, but how do you convince people that, we saw this man? And it's like,
but we also have a character who's a trans man, since he doesn't have a Y chromosome, though. He doesn't die. Mm-hmm. So he goes around and has to explain himself that, I'm trans and stuff. I'm a biological female, transition to male. So I'm sure there's other people like that for sure.
Yeah.
So you would see people and go like, I think that's a dude. And it's like, oh no, I'm trans. And like, are you? I don't know. And some people, don't believe in that anyways. So yeah, we got a couple of characters. We have Diane
Lane.
I was going to say Diane Wiest.
I knew you were.
Freaking Brooklyn Nine-Nine creeping in my head. Diane Lane is a senator, or what was she? A congresswoman. She was.
Yeah, I think she was congresswoman, and she's just sort of, because everyone in front of her was a man, she just became the president by succession.
Yeah,
or
the rules of succession or whatever. There's actually one woman ahead of her, but she's like a crazy anti-vax, super conservative, gun nut, religious freak.
And they believe she died in a plane crash because I think she was on Air Force One, maybe, that was piloted by her.
She was in a building that collapsed.
Oh, okay.
And they thought she was dead, but in the end of episode 3, we find out she's still alive. And the first thing she thinks of when all the men in the world are dead is, I'm the president of the United States. She doesn't worry about anybody else. It's just like, nope, this is my job. And so now we have this pull of power of the women in charge going, this woman cannot be in charge. She's a radical nutcase. And then you have all the wives of senators and the former president's daughter going like, well, this person needs to be in charge because she shares the same values as them. And God, Amber Tamlin is going to be such a fucking thorn in my side.
Yeah, watching the show, I just felt like, oh my God, okay, this is the last man's Joffrey.
Yeah, yes.
Not that she's necessarily that insane, or as what's the word I'm looking for? When not vicious.
Yeah, she's not malicious. She's just like very stuck in her own beliefs. Like she's a mother of like 3 or 4 boys and believes like we're teaching our sons to be scared of girls, and men used to be men, and now they're all a bunch of wieners and stuff. And then all of her husband and all of her kids die. Her father, who was president, dies, and she's just kind of like stuck standing around. And she kind of realizes she's in the way. People are looking at her like, "What the fuck are you still doing here? You're not in politics. You're just the daughter of the president."
She basically had all this power because she was the daughter of the most, in quotes, powerful man in the world, and then everything that she had was taken away, essentially. So now she's just basically a friend of the family who no one wants around.
Yeah.
But she's now, you can tell she's the leader of the coalition of women who want their voices heard, but their voices are... I don't know what the goal is for them, really. It's just...
Yeah, they're just waiting. They're biding their time and waiting for a moment when they can seize power, or at least put someone in power who has the same views as them.
Yeah. I think the show... I'm interested to see where it goes. Like, I'm always a fan of apocalyptic scenarios where you see sort of factions break up and how people handle world-changing events. Like, The Leftovers is a show we both really enjoyed. I don't believe the show will reach Leftovers height by any means, but I think it'll be fun to see, okay, here's this group of women who have these male values or wish, like, we can't lose these things because men are important too. And then you have these factions who, like, I imagine there'll be groups of women who, oh, well, we don't need men, so if they find Yorick, they're just going to kill him because, like, this is a thing from God that got rid of men, so he's an abomination, so we just need to kill him, so that'll be a thing for him to worry about, while also having to deal with the politics of, like, oh, I'm the only one who survived, and I happen to be the son of the president, which they talked about on the show. It's like, if anyone finds out,
how convenient.
They'll think it's a conspiracy that the U.S. government did this to them. And just seeing these women survive in just in general in a world where half the population is gone. Not even necessarily about anything that has to do with being a man, but just the devastation of no one can bear kids. Like, they've saved sperm from sperm banks and everything, but apparently even the male sperms are all dead too.
Not the female sperms. The female sperms are alive and well. But they said they're not sure if it would even work. Like, can you still get pregnant? If you can get pregnant, maybe you only have a girl, or if it's going to be a boy, you miscarry or something. Who knows? We're not quite sure what's going on. So they're trying to they find Yorick, who's just been bumming around trying to find his girlfriend, who he tried to propose to the night before it all went down, and he's leaving messages everywhere saying, like, please go home. He has a monkey. Ampersand. Not the best CG monkey I've seen in my life, but for TV, it's fine. It's serviceable. But they're like, it's one of the first things you see. It like pops up in a window, and I was just like, ooh, that's an ugly looking CG monkey.
Is it CG the whole time? I just thought...
I'm pretty sure. If it's... Yeah, when it's walking around, I'm pretty sure it's all CG.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I just wasn't looking that hard, but I suspended disbelief enough. I just thought it was the monkey from Community or something. And The Hangover, he's just a great actor, so, they just brought him in for this.
Pretty sure it's an all CG monkey.
Oh, okay.
I think my favorite part, it has been Olivia Thirlby's character. She is the daughter of the president, and she's a recovering addict. She's a ambulance EMT. Is that what?
EMT. Yeah.
EMT. Okay. She's been sleeping with her coworker, and the coworker is like, "Oh, I told my wife all about you, and I'm gonna leave, and we're gonna run away together." Turns out he didn't. He didn't say anything. She finds out and tries to, like, they're banging in the back of the ambulance, and Olivia Thirlby's just pissed, trying to get him to leave, whacks him with a fire extinguisher, but like hits him with the handle part, and it like digs into his neck, and he dies. And so she's freaking out, and it just so happened the next morning all the men die, so she can easily just blame this on the event, but I know it's probably going to just weigh on her and guilt her for the rest of the season, and I think that's cool. And it's nice to see Olivia Thirlby. Like,
yeah, I haven't seen where's she been, because I've liked her in
Dread and
the Whackness,
and
Juno?
Juno, yeah, those are like her big ones, and the Whackness is only like a niche movie that only some people know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to see her. And like, because when names were popping up in the credits, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then it's like Amber Tamblyn. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And then when they showed her, I didn't even recognize her at first. She's actually looking more age appropriate for David Cross now.
Mm. Oh yeah, I forgot they were together.
Married, yeah. And have been for a while. But like when they got married, it just seemed like ooh, David. That's kind of creepy. But now he's a very old looking man, and she's an older looking woman, so it works a little better.
I think probably the biggest character we haven't talked about is Agent 355, who, when we were first introduced to her, is making a bomb. Oh, she's a black woman, but she's making a bomb for Klan members.
I could assume.
Yeah.
Oklahoma people who don't like black women.
Because the guy she's essentially dating in the scene, and it's just like, these guys who are coming to get this bomb are not going to be happy if they find out a black woman is making their bomb for them. So you should probably go. And we see her leave, and as she's like walking away from the house, thing just explodes. So she just made bomb. I thought maybe she was just kind of like just this rogue vigilante kind of chick who's just like, I'm just going to fucking kill racists because who cares? But you find out she actually is a shadow government agent, apparently, who has ties to the president, and who gets a mission to go to the White House to work with him or kill him, or we don't really know.
Sure.
We're not really sure what her mission was, but as she's in the room with the president, that's when things go down. And so now, and all of her handlers were men as well. And so she's just like, all right, well, I don't know what to do with myself, so I'm just going to align myself with the president.
I'm already here, might as well.
And she's like, we don't know if she is actually part of the U.S. government, I guess. Yeah. But from the way she described it, I just assumed
that I felt like she told the truth.
Yeah.
But I felt like, no, they're not actually the good guys. These people will either do things for their own political agenda, or they're just for hire. So they would go to kill the president, or go across the seas and kill another government agent. Right. You know? So we're not 100% sure if she's telling the truth and saying, yeah, I was supposed to be working with your husband, or if she had something more nefarious. I'm going to say more nefarious.
I'm going to say more nefarious too, because I think that would just make it more interesting. But everything on the show so far leads me to believe that she's just happy to work for Diane Lane, because she's doing all the dirty work that Diane Lane, I don't even think it really gives her the go-ahead. She's killing people to protect Yorick and the president, even though the president never explicitly said, take these people out or anything like that. She's just, all in on protecting this guy. Yeah, so I'm interested to see see more of her backstory and, what her deal is and how she fits into the whole grand scheme of things. But she's a pretty cool character, because I like that she's clearly has no problem killing people, but it doesn't seem like she's just, blank slate. Because I feel like shows do that a lot with female killers, is they'll just make them kind of dead-eyed, not interesting characters. They're just my whole thing is I kill because this is what I'm good at, or someone killed my family, and they just. But she does seem to have a personality, which I like. And
because she has to kind of integrate herself with other people, she has to be able to act and play the part. Whereas a lot of the female killers we see, they are always snipers from afar. They can be cold and merciless because they never have to really interact with anybody. Yeah, they're the Ruby Rose and John Wick. They're the Gina Carano's and the Haywire. Well, yeah, but I was thinking of Ronda Rousey. It's just usually you get these, tough women, and you just don't give them anything to act with. Where I don't remember the actress's name, but I think she's doing a great job so far. Yeah, so far. I would like to recommend, if you like Why the Last Man, there is a movie called No Men Beyond This Point. Have you heard of this movie? I don't think so. It's a mockumentary about women in the 70s just stop having to... they start being able to have children without men. They just become pregnant, and no boys are being born. It's only women. And so men start getting kind of pushed aside. They're not really needed. Some people, they go after men still, but now in the modern day, the like youngest man is like 37 years old, and he's like a housekeeper for these two women, and like a lot of women are just like pairing up, not necessarily in relationships, but like it's easier to do it with a partner, and then we can raise our kids together. And it comes off a little serious at first, but there's a couple of moments of comedy where they're sick of men. Actually before that, since there's so many women, all their periods sync up at the same time.
I was waiting for you to get done talking because I was just going to pitch you. Oh, I bet there's going to be an episode of Why the Last Man where like the whole bit of the episode is like, oh, we're all synced now. It's
yeah.
Like, oh my god.
So the whole world like syncs up, and they just go ape shit on men, and they just beat the liver loving shit out of them.
That's
and they all
funny.
like flee the cities, and they realize like, okay, we can't do this. So they take all the men and give them Australia. And they're like, that's where men live now. Get out of the rest of the
Let's
world.
send all the dudes to the most dangerous country in the world, essentially.
And it keeps cutting back to these like kind of men's right activist people, and they're all a bunch of fucking goobs. They're all stupid. And the women are like, okay, we're sorry. We kind of let you fend for yourselves. Here's all the equipment you need to grow crops and to, build your own society. And they all just kind of reject it because they're not being waited on hand and foot by women. And so they eventually all die out.
That's funny.
It's a pretty funny movie. Don't read comments on IMDb especially for Why the Last Man. Have you read any sort of reviews?
I have not.
Oh my god, it's all like, why does everything have to be so fucking woke all the time? And it's like, just because it's all women doesn't mean it's woke. And this isn't a new story. This came out, 2005, I think, when the graphic novel came out?
Yeah, I think sometime in the early 2000s.
And it's just like, God forbid you have a cast that's not predominantly men. How gay is it of straight men that they have to look at dudes in their media? Like, why can't you watch a show about women dealing with not having men? And it's like, the show is called Why the Last Man. It's about a dude, And it's not completely about him, but he's a big part of it. And it's like, why can't you just enjoy something for what it is and not assume it? And it's like, oh, well, they talk about transgender people. It must be woke. It's like, transgender people are a way of life. Like,
it's just a phase, Mom.
Transgender people are just in the world. So it's not like, oh, because you put one in. It's like saying, like, how dare you put a black person in because there's no black people living in my neighborhood. I don't see that in my life. Why should I watch it in my entertainment? It's like, the world is so much bigger than your tiny little bubble. But they're all hilarious. If you read those comments, they're everybody's giving it three stars, 1 star, whatever, and it's all because like how quote unquote woke it is.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'll be interested to see in this show is because there's always that conversation of, oh, the world's so fucked up because men have been running. It's like, if a woman was president, there'd be no more wars. There's been that whole spiel, and it's like, here's a competent woman who's like. And what I like about Diane Lane's character is that she's diverting resources to people. Mm-hmm. She's making a lot of choices like, we're not going to worry about this dumb thing right now because these people need help. Yeah. So like, she's a very competent, good leader so far, in my opinion. Now, as the world gets more complicated and things get crazier, she might be making hard decisions, or it's like, maybe you don't agree with her. But it'll be interesting to see the comments going, well, especially on the show. I mean, gather my thoughts. What I'm trying to say is, here's a show where you're pitching this idea that if a woman ran the world or whatever, there'd be no more wars and all that stuff. But that's in a world where men exist. Mm-hmm. It's like, here's a world where, let's just say, no men exist. You're going to have women who aren't going to agree. Half the women on the planet probably aren't going to agree with the other half. Yeah. And it's like, that doesn't end wars. It just makes a different type of war. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see all those people who are like, oh, it's going to be like this. So it's like, well, really, it's not, because humans are humans.
Yeah. And the thing I like about the show is that they actually, because that's what I think of, like, man, zombie apocalypse, how fucking cool would that be? I get to like hunker down and kill zombies. Like, yeah, well, what about that nuclear power plant that is now on like autopilot now? Eventually that thing's going to shut down. Mm-hmm. What about the hydroelectric dams and stuff like that? Eventually these things are going to like break and you're going to die. And you're not going to even know how to handle any of that. So I like that they're going to be talking about the water and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they haven't really talked about not that the economy is because money isn't really important right now. No one's like buying stuff, but it'll be interesting to see like all these jobs that were predominantly like led by men now have to be filled, but like there's just less people. I mean, obviously there's fields that have plenty of women, but some fields that just don't. It's like, all right, well, now we need to divert resources to train these women on the floor. Or like maybe there's women at the power plant. It's like, I don't know how to do my boss's job, but I'm just the highest ranking person here. It's like, I pressed this button every day. This guy pressed 100 buttons every day or whatever. It'll be interesting to see how the world changes in that sense.
And that's a good commentary on like how many fields that they don't hire women in general, just because it's like, well, it's always men. So of course we're going to take like more men applicants are going to happen. So we're going to have more men be hired, and how like kind of crucial it is to have women in all fields, because you never know when this will happen.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously I'm not a conspiracy theory person, but I think that I have heard that no matter how unlikely, the government has contingency plans for like alien zombie, like they've thought of at least something that they would do in this scenario. Sure. It's like, all right, well, what would they do if all the men in the world died or all the women in the world died? And they're just like,
they're like, fuck it, I'm not here. So
I mean, the men would just all fuck each other. Like we'd still get laid, but
yeah, there'd be a lot of like no homo stuff. It's just kind of like, well, you're not gay when it's the apocalypse. Yeah, man. It's cool.
Fun show so far.
Yeah. One thing I want to say about, if a woman was president, there'd be no more wars. They talk about that in No Man Beyond This Point, where pretty much since women are running governments worldwide, they all kind of like, it is like world peace. They all kind of come to the conclusion that like war's dumb, and they like cure cancer within 10 years and stuff. Like because it's like, well, we didn't have war anymore, so we put all of our money into science, and yeah, we cured cancer in 10 years, and we did this and everything solar powered and stuff like that. It's just kind of, it's fun.
I think this takes a more believable approach that they're just awful women as well.
Yes. All right. Well, before we get to our main topic, we have a sponsor.
Ben, you like beautiful things, right?
I do.
So, of course, when you think beautiful, you think pro wrestling.
Absolutely.
Well, you're in luck, because today's sponsor is Stone Cold Foxes. Beautiful foxes raised and groomed by professional wrestler Stone Cold Steve Austin. Each fox lives on Stone Cold Steve Austin's gorgeous private ranch, where they are raised from birth to be the perfect companion for any fox enthusiast. John 3:16 said, "For God so loved the world, he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life." Austin 3:16 says, "Buy one of these foxes, or I'll whoop your pansy ass." All Stone Cold foxes have been domesticated and clipped to ensure safety and comfortability among owners and their loved ones. Now, what does the fox say? Who the hell knows? But these human Stone Cold foxes have something to say. Actress Megan Fox said, "I love animals, and this little guy transformed my life." Actor Matthew Fox said, "I wasn't sure where my life was heading. I was lost. Until I got this party of 5 foxes." Oscar-winning recording artist Jamie Foxx says, "I was in stealth." Visit the website and view the profile of all the foxes you can choose from and see if their personality matches yours, along with any other facts and tips to help any new fox owner. Now you may be wondering, where do I sign? Well, that's easy. Just sign at the end of the contract, because that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. Use promo code WRPL to get your first bag of fox food free and 2 cans of beer to shotgun during checkout. Grab your new best friend with Stone Cold Foxes. Now give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah! That sounds great. Back to the show. So our main topic is a fantastic little show that finally came to an end. Brooklyn Nine-Nine. A show about a silly police station led by Jake Peralta, played by Andy Samberg.
Correct.
Well, what's your history with Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
So, Brooklyn Nine-Nine was one of those shows where I have started from when the first episode premiered, I watched that episode. So I've been with the show since the
fans from day one. I'm
a day one fan. I didn't hit quarantine or anything, and I was just bored, so I was like, let me just check out this show. So now I've been watching this show for the past 8 years.
Well, I guess it would be 9 years.
From when it started, because, yeah. And I jumped on the show because it was made by the same people who did Parks and Rec and The Good Place, all produced by Mike Schur, who is probably the greatest working television producer right now, because all of his stuff is not only funny but heartwarming as hell. It's just, all of his shows are real endearing, and it's just been a pleasant ride all the way through. This latest season is probably their weakest season, with it being shorter and sort of, I didn't mind some of the stuff that they tackled, but I know it rubbed a lot of viewers the wrong way. But I don't think there's a single bad episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, at least that I can remember.
No, I when I did my last rewatch, I remember it was around the Florida stuff that I remember going like, this doesn't feel like Holt. Actually, it may have been like when Jake was in prison, something like that. But it was just like, nope, they're getting Holt wrong this season. There have been ups and downs, and I think this season is pretty consistent. I don't think there's a bad episode in this bunch.
No, I don't think so either.
And I think because it is a shorter season and every episode kind of hits all the things that I love about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, this would be one of the better seasons. It's just there's not enough of it, whereas every other season had like it's like the two lowest seasons were 13 episodes and 18 episodes. Everything else was 22, 23 episodes. This was only 8, and I think they nailed it. And if this season would have continued, and if they had this consistency...
It was 9 episodes. Well, 10 if you...
The last one was considered part 1, part 2. It just played on air as a singular episode. They didn't break it.
No, I know.
The intros.
But I think it's 9, not 8.
I think technically, yes.
Because I think technically it's 10 episodes, but it's 9, because the last one is a 2-parter.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. You're right. You're right. Hold on, let me just...
Which is poignant that, the show called 9-9 ends on the 9th episode.
Are you sure? Because no, you're right. Because when I watch these, I watched the finale, and then I started my rewatch. So when I was taking notes, I started with 9. So at the end, my notes end with 8. That's what was getting me fucked up.
Got it.
All right. Yeah, so if it continued with its consistency, this would have been an excellent season. I actually have some data about the season.
Hit me with some data.
Okay.
And it's pronounced data, but I'll let it slide.
Actually, I think it depends on what you're talking about. I think data is information. Data is like your data plan for your phone. I think they're interchangeable.
It's such a niche audience. Who knows?
Niche.
These Reese's Pieces are so good.
Don't even get me started. All right. So I have a ranking of the seasons. There is a wonderful little app called neetcoder.com. That's NEETCODER. And you're able to put in any show, and it will graph all the episodes per season, and it's color coded of like their ratings. It will tell you highest rated episodes, lowest rated episodes, the season rankings and stuff like that. And you can just put in anything. It's great. And it's really kind of fun to see like, well, yeah, what was the lowest rated episode of The Office or 30 Rock or something like that. So I got a few little things. So what do you want to do first? Do you want to do best episodes or best seasons?
Go with seasons, because I don't recall all the seasons per se, but there is episodes that I do love that we can talk about.
Okay. This final season, of the top or the lowest 10, 3 of the episodes from this season are on here.
That doesn't surprise me.
And we'll get to it. Okay, so season rankings. If you had to take a guess, what was the best season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
So before this, I was sort of going through the seasons, just going like, okay, if I'm picking out episodes, which ones would I pick? And most of the ones that I love are 5. I think 5 is the best season. The season I think people might vote for the most would probably be like 2 or 3. Okay,
well, you're right. Season 5 is the highest rated season. It's got 22 episodes. It has a rank of 8.32. Now, technically, it is tied with number 2, which is season 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It also is 8.32, but it only has 13 episodes that season. So,
Less room to fail.
Yeah, exactly. You have 9 more episodes and you still get that same ranking. Pretty good. So the third best season is season 4, 22 episodes with an 8.19. I wrote all this down and I'm just reading it off my phone. Fourth best season, season 2, 23 episodes, 8.13. Fifth best season is season 3, 23 episodes, 8.1. Sixth best season, 6. And that had only 18 episodes with an 8.08. Season 1 is the 7th best season.
That doesn't surprise me. A lot of first seasons are trying to find their footing and
stuff.
Sure,
but I think they came out of the gates blazing. That first episode is so funny. But it still has a pretty high rating of 8.04. So every season until season 8 is pretty high. So obviously the last season is season 8, only 8. See, it even shows it here. 8 episodes. Whatever. Yeah. And it has a 7.42.
Ooh.
But if I pull up a movie on IMDb and it has a 7.42, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to see a total piece of shit.
Yeah.
Once it's like in the 5s and below, I know it's probably going to be pretty bad.
Yeah, 7 or above, probably going to enjoy the movie. 6, it could go either way. 5 or below, it's like, okay, this is not going to be good.
Yeah. As I said, 3 of the episodes from this season are considered the lowest of the entire run, including the lowest episode of all time, which is the first episode of this season. Episode 1, The Good Ones.
I did see that on IMDb earlier.
Yeah. I think it's really kind of a shame because the 3 lowest ranking ones are the ones that actually have something to say, and that makes people mad. They just want you that's the name of your porno. What does he say? Next name of your sex tape. They just want jokes like that.
Yeah.
They just want, oh, look at Rosa's a funny, tough person and she makes a straight face. They don't want to hear anything that makes them question the police and all. And it's like this show's never really been like pro-police. It's always taken a stance on police being better people than they're always portrayed. We always have like shitty cops within shows, and I think it's a shame that people feel the need to just like shit all over this season because they actually want to, I don't know, use real world things. It's hard to get a show that we're supposed to like love these cops when daily we see cops do absolute horrific shitty things, and it's an injustice or a disservice to not at least touch upon that.
Yeah, and if your argument is that I just want because all I see all day is these awful things happening all the time, whether you agree or disagree with whatever side, if your argument is I just want an escape, I would just want this funny show to be funny, I don't want to see some serious thing that's going to bring me down, I'm trying to just enjoy a comedy show, I get that. But the episodes where they do have something to say, even if it does take you out for a minute, all those episodes are still funny. Like, there's shows who have trouble balancing the serious with the comedy. Brooklyn Nine-Nine has never had that problem. Whether it be the episode where Rosa's in a mass shooting incident or Terry is profiled, like, all those episodes still have quality jokes throughout. It just also happens to want to, like, try and bring something to light, and it's just a bunch of angry people who are like, well, I don't agree, and fuck this liberal Hollywood media for trying to make me feel bad about, loving owning guns. It's like, they're just not even talking about owning guns.
It's just...
all these guys use guns every episode.
Absolutely. All right, so as you can tell, we're going to go through season 8 of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and just kind of like our Rick and Morty and our Dave episode, we're just going to talk about the things that we like. So,
and then probably talk about the series as a whole and just how we felt about it and favorite moments and characters and all that good stuff.
For sure. So episode 1, The Good Ones. The episode starts off like people are wearing masks, letting you know, it's just one of those television milestones that whenever you go back and rewatch it 10 years from now, you'll go like, oh yeah,
that's the quarantine season.
COVID. God damn. So the main point of the story is a cop feels like he was profiled and that they put a mouse in his burrito. And They are trying to prove that it wasn't any sort of like malicious attack. The cop ordered it online. They had no idea he was a cop, that he put the mouse in there on his own. And
they have footage of him going to a pet store, buying a mouse.
So yeah, and then we meet one of the best characters that I've come across.
Yeah, this character popped up multiple times throughout the season and was fun.
The main villain.
Yeah. Played by the great John C. McGinley? I don't know.
John C. McGinley.
All right, cool. I nailed it.
His character is named Frank O'Sullivan, and he's the head of the policemen's union, and all he cares about is getting cops off, regardless if they are bad or in the wrong in any way. He's an excellent villain for Holt. It's a shame he couldn't have shown up earlier in this series. I guess Holt always had Wunsch to be his villain, but this is...
And Wunsch is fantastic.
Yeah, but at least like him and Wunsch believe in the same things when it comes to being a cop. This guy is just the worst of the worst.
Yeah, the antithesis to everything a cop should be.
So Rosa quits. She's no longer a detective, and she becomes a PI because, after George Floyd was killed, she just saw like how bad cops can be, especially to people of color, and didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And I give her an applause for that. But I love how they found a reason in every episode for her to show up in some way and still be part of the team without actually still being a cop.
Yeah, it's real smart writing. And of all the characters to leave, I think it makes the most sense for her to do it, because she's always been sort of the solo one, the one who would go against the norm, because she is sort of the lone wolf, even though she has this pack that she can still go back to. But
one of my favorite scenes, so Jake is helping Rosa help a case with a woman who was unjustly assaulted by cops. The body cam footage has gone missing, and he wants to kind of prove that not all cops are bad, and just help her with the case in general. They actually find evidence that the cops were in the wrong, and the police chief he took her to like help out is actually one of the bad cops too. And they have this running joke of like, oh, I'm not one of the bad cops who says I'm not one of the bad cops. I'm one of the good cops that say I'm not one of the bad cops. And she has this long spiel about what happens when you try to punish police officers and how they'll always get out of it scot-free, and how it always blows back onto superiors who are trying to get rid of bad cops, and they'll always get time off that is paid, and it's just like the bureaucracy and
all the red tape,
and
with lawyers and unions and public opinion, and it just nothing ever good happens from it, so why bother doing it at all? Exactly. And it, like, the bit's played pretty funny because it's just like she's going on and on and on, but everything she's saying also makes total sense, and I get that thought process. Yeah. So it's funny because it's true, but also real sad because it's true.
Yes. And then our B plot is Amy and Holt have kind of an awkwardness. She has come back to the force now that she has given birth to Mac, and she had kind of an extended pregnancy leave because of the pandemic. She notices instantly that there's some awkwardness between her and Holt, because Holt makes small talk with her, and small talk is for con men and strangers or something like that. And it turns out he was being awkward because him and Kevin have separated. Gasp! Which is a nice running story of this season. I love Kevin. I've always loved Kevin. He's one of the best.
Well, I was worried when this plot line came up, because I was like, I don't want them to shoehorn this like last minute thing for this character, because obviously there's been episodes where Holt and Kevin have been at odds because Holt is fraternizing with these goofballs, and but like the idea of them breaking up to me just seemed out of place because they're just made for each other, so I didn't want to see them break up. And the season kept going on, and it's like, oh, maybe they're not going to get back together. It's like, if this is how it ends for Holt, that's going to be real sad.
Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to mention, well, actually two things. Hitchcock retires, but he still shows up in a little iPad with Scully. I think there's a joke where it's in a later episode, but Amy says like, "Oh, you guys still eat lunch together?" I'm like, "Yep, twice a day." It's just a good little joke. And one thing, I didn't notice this until episode 8, the Boyle family episode.
Okay.
How weird Boyle's hair is and how short it is. So I was like, has it been like that from episode 1? So I was watching his hair through every episode, and it gets shorter and shorter as it goes. Like the first, when they first come back and they're in the bar, it's relatively shaggy, and it gets a little shorter and a little shorter, and it's not like every episode you could tell it was a conscious thing. It's almost like or maybe they shot him backwards and they gave him a really sharp haircut, and then it kind of grew out over time. And but you do notice his hair get a little bit shorter in each one, and then when you get to that episode, it's like that extreme weird cut. I don't know, just something
I did notice his hair too, but I didn't track its height. I just was like, the first episode aired, I was like, his hair looks different.
Yeah.
But okay.
I think they gave Jake that really good haircut like 2 seasons ago, and they're like, we got to stick with this. And he said, oh, I want a cool haircut too. And they did not give him a cool haircut.
Well, it's Boyle. Boyle's never been the cool guy.
That's true.
Despite what he may think.
So this episode was a 4.9. Lowest, like no episode is below a 6.0. And yeah, this one's worst episode of the series, and it does not deserve to be. I mean, I don't even think it's the worst episode of this season. I have my least favorite episode, and it may be controversial.
Oh.
But let's move on.
I think I know what it is.
You have? Okay. Well,
I have a theory, but
okay, just throw it out. I won't give a clue.
I think your controversial opinion is it's the last one.
Okay.
Either that or the Pontiac Bandit episode.
Okay. Or episode 6 or episode 5. You know.
But my pick is the final episode.
The final episode. Okay. Episode 2, The Lake House. This has an 8.0, one of the higher ones of this season. Actually, all of them are pretty good, but this is a little bit higher than others. So, the whole episode is about going to Captain Holt and Kevin's lake house, and Jake has a plan to get them back together because his 2 dads are breaking up, and he can't have that. We find out that the lake house is not because it's on a lake. It's
because it was owned by a man whose last name was Lake.
Exactly. So Jake messes with their schedules to get them both up there at the same time.
Parent trapping them.
Yes. And so that's the main plot of him and Terry kind of team up to try to do it, even though Terry doesn't want any sort of blame. He just wants all the credit. He loves hedging, but hates ledges. Our B and C stories. B story is Mac, the Mac Peralta, can't sleep, and so Amy's having hell of a time trying to get him to rest, and Boyle, comes and does his motherly thing and gets him to sleep. But
Boyle's great with kids.
Yeah, but accidentally locks him in the bedroom and is trying to keep it from Amy. Our C story is Rosa eats an edible because she doesn't want to deal with any of this, and then teams up with Scully, and they're ranking potato chips. I like all the Rosa gets high stuff. She's just like, I like when she's not straight-faced and serious. She's just a big goofball, and it's very, very funny. That's all I really have to say about that story.
Fun fact about Stephanie Beatrice, the actress who plays Rosa. She had a daughter this past month and named it Rosaline.
Really?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, I thought that was real cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
So our B story with Amy and Boyle, it's just funny seeing Boyle flounder around Amy, but it had my favorite joke of the season, which Boyle says, like, he gets Mac to calm down. He's like, I'm a natural mother. And Amy says, yeah, natural motherfucker. Anytime they cuss in this show is the best because and it works so good because they bleep everything, and because it's an NBC show, everything seems like it should be a little wholesome and that they shouldn't be able to get away with these things.
This last season, they did not care.
Yeah.
They cursed. I think they dropped an F word in almost every episode.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, and also another joke I like, at the beginning, Boyle is trying to get Amy to be like, oh, well, I can help you. I can give you my nip tips. And she's like, you could just call it tips. It's like, just the tips. Okay, that's good. And then at the end, she's just like, well, I'm really grateful for your nip tips. And he's like, oh, you don't want those crusty old things. It's just like Boyle's wordplay is one of the highlights of the series. He always just says like the worst, most disgusting, uncomfortable things and just doesn't hear it. But our main story, Jake is trying to get them back together, and so he's setting up like picnics, a romantic picnic for them, and getting them to bird watch. And they're doing corn crate calls to flesh them out. And Holt ends up doing one very poorly, but Kevin still goes to it anyways because it shows, he still has feelings. He's just waiting for Captain Holt to kind of make the first move. Mm-hmm. Kevin gets stung by bees and is blinded. That's some funny shit. Come on, help me out here, Steve.
Well, you just watched them recently. I don't recall.
You don't remember?
Yeah, I mean, you have a...
Yeah, but I took a lot of notes for this.
You have a pretty good memory without notes, and then I just have none.
I felt like if I didn't rewatch this season, we'd be like, what do they do? Oh, yeah, that thing. What was funny? I don't know. Next one. So I had to rewatch it. But, all right, well, it's a fun little episode.
But it basically ends with them not getting back together, correct?
No,
or is it they try?
He leaves, like, Holt's about to tell him, like, I want to make things work, but Kevin leaves. They find out Kevin has the same feelings, and so he calls him back and says, like, let's go to counseling. So
counseling, right.
They're going to go to counseling.
Cool. Moving on, episode 3, The Blue Flu, 7.1, one of the lower rated ones. And I think it seems like whenever Frank O'Sullivan shows up, it's like those are the lower rated episodes because it is the more political stuff. But he just kills it. I can't see how anybody could watch an episode with him and not laugh at. Yeah, he's like the opposite of PC Principal on South Park.
Yeah.
And PC Principal is hilarious.
Yeah. Wait, did I fuck this up?
I think you're right. Blue Flu, I think, is next.
No. The Mouse and the Burrito is not episode 1. Mouse and Burrito is episode 3. Because he finds the mouse and then people are walking out claiming to have the flu or have mono. So what was the major thing in episode 1? What the fuck?
Oh. Hang on.
Oh, I guess the major thing was just Rose's case, I guess. That's why he was there, because he was saying, the cops didn't have their police cams on and stuff. Wow. I done goofed. Sorry.
That's the thing about the whirlpool, baby. Even sometimes we get all washed up in it.
So yeah, Mouse Burritos in this one. The cops are saying they're walking out, but it's because they can't protest because they would get in trouble. They're saying they all have the flu. They're all going to the same doctor, and they're coming back with mono diagnosis. But Boyle says like it's the cousin's disease, not the kissing disease. Why is he making out with his cousins? I can't remember. But since he already has mono, he's immune to it. So, like, well, if you could go to the doctor and tell them, and if they come back with a fake diagnosis, then you can prove that it's false. But it wasn't the doctor; it was actually the lab faking all the results. But when Boyle's there, one of his testicles is like much larger than the other, and like. He's like, oh, like, what's wrong with it? And like, well, the size, the color, the texture, and oh my God, it's ice cold. It's like any of the senses it shows that there's something wrong with it. Terry's trying to infiltrate like a group, but he has like stomach issues. Terry's tummy is grumbling or something. He says something like that. I can't remember why he's sick. He's just, but so he wears a wire to go to this meeting. But you can't hear anything from it because his stomach just keeps growling. Since they're down on patrolmen, all the different stations sends the 9-9 all their Hitchcocks and Scullies, yeah. And they're all trying to like how to get out of working. They're supposed to wear pedometers so they see that they're on the beat, but they just sit in vibrating chairs to make it seem like they're walking all the time. So some good stuff. My favorite joke of this episode is Boyle is all sad that he thinks he has cancer. He's going to die. His son's going to be not orphan, because he has a mom. I'm surprised she never showed up.
No.
Yeah. That his son won't have a father and things like that. And Jake's trying to cheer him up, and he's like, well, do you have a bucket list? Well, we could do something on that. And he's like, yeah, I only have one thing on my bucket list. To live to 110. I thought I found a loophole. So that's good. And then at the end, Holt cusses out O'Sullivan for, being terrible. Sullivan doesn't care if the cops are sick or not. He just wants to make sure that his cops don't get persecuted for being shitty people. And Holt just goes off on him. He gets to his highest level of agitation, which is huffy, and just goes off and cusses at him. It's pretty great.
Yeah. I love whenever Holt shows anything different than his sort of monotone.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my favorite openers is when Amy is 2 minutes late,
mm-hmm.
and they all are trying to like decide, how did she, like, why is she late? She's never late. She's
mm-hmm.
always on time. And he's like, oh, well, maybe she was stuck in a bank line.
A problem at
the bank. And then she like runs in. She's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. There was a line at the bank, and he's like, hot damn! And just like, we never see him get so excited, but he was just so happy that he got the answer right. So I love Holt.
Yeah, Holt's a great character. And in the beginning, he was like so straight-laced, and with moments of comedy, they were really good at like kind of making him sillier,
mm-hmm.
still maintaining who Holt is, but being kind of a goof. They walk that line pretty well.
Right.
All right, episode 4, Balancing. What's this episode about, Steve? Why don't you walk me through it?
It's about Jake and Amy trying to find the balance between work life and baby life.
Exactly. And what's going on in their lives?
Work and babies.
Yes, but it's worked for both of them. Amy, they're in the last episode, because they had so fewer officers on the street, crime went down, incidents went down, all these things because the cops weren't just like an imposing presence. So they have to kind of create a program of how they can better the city without ruining their numbers and having less cops on the street. So she's working on this huge proposal, and Jake, his arch nemesis, Johnny Franzia, is back on the scene.
Yep.
He leaves clues just for Jake at the scene of the crime.
Which, this is one of those sitcom things that's so stupid that it's like, this shouldn't work, but it's so fun anyway that, mm-hmm. like, I can still enjoy it. Like, Jake walks into a room and sees 2 lamps, and he's like, oh, this is definitely Johnny Franzi's work. He's the only kind of person who put like 2 lamps next to each other or something like that. It's like, that's not a thing.
Well, he left a stack of cards, and he usually leaves like notes about like the 2 of clubs or whatever. And it had like 2 pillows, 2 chairs, but 3 lamps.
Oh, okay.
And then it's just like, Terry's like, see, it can't be him. And then Boyle's just like, oh, they go to the scene of the crime, and Jake's like, see, it's got a 3rd lamp. I'm like, you said Johnny Franzia doesn't care about lamps. And like, he loves lamps. And so the 3rd lamp actually has like a black light in it that shows
a message
on the wall and stuff like that. And so he's finally able to like go after his arch nemesis. But Amy's doing something important, and they have their kid. And their kid, there was an outbreak of lice at the daycare, so now they're stuck with a baby. And they're trying to, find a way to balance work and home.
And this is the episode where you can definitely see where I think you and I both kind of went, okay, I think I know how this series is going to end for mm-hmm. certain characters. And this one sort of solidified where the trajectory would mm-hmm. go from here on out.
Yeah, so they try to like get babysitters, and like the first one, it was like had been a year anniversary from when she was arrested and brought to that very police station. The second one loves to cuddle and gives a little stuffed lion to Mac, and is just a super creep. And then the third one is like a little Mary Poppins type character who just sings a song about spanking fannies and stuff. So they don't go with any of them.
Yeah. So they go with good old, I may be jumping ahead, but they go with good old Scully.
Yes. Scully has a nice soft padded room.
Where he goes to take naps,
Where he goes to take naps, but he busts his foot on the one part that wasn't covered, and it's bloody and disgusting. He has to go to the hospital. They try to like give a phone to Mac so he could just do screen time. They didn't want to do screen time for like 2 years, but he wasn't having it. He actually like breaks Amy's phone. So then they're torn. and Amy's presentation gets moved up, and they're closing in on Franzia, and Jake realizes, like, Boyle can get Franzia. You know, your reform pilot program is way more important to the world than me catching my bad guy. And there's some funny stuff throughout it where like Boyle had to like chase him down into like the sewer, into a series of tunnels, and just like all these really cool action movie things that Jake would have loved to do but had to miss out. But in the end, he kind of like realized, you know, Mac's his little guy, and he's just happy to be his dad. And this is the only time we see Mac as a person. Every time he's just a baby swaddled in a stroller or something like this, because Mac pulls himself up, and that was one of the things that they're, you know, they think, you know, they don't want him to fall behind in development, and he does it. And it kind of took me aback for some reason. He pulls himself up, and there's this little kid with like really dark hair, and it's like, well, of course, Amy and Jake both have dark hair, and I don't know why I was expecting a little blonde baby,
because all little blonde, yeah, it's always little like blonde babies on
very
TV.
Little hair, but this kid has a bunch of hair, and it kind of just like, oh, ew. I mean, I was saying like ew regardless.
That seems like such a Boyle thing. Yeah. It's just like, oh, their babies are just born with like a full head of dark, thick hair, because why wouldn't they be? B's
story is Holt is staying with Rosa. Because, you know, he can't stay with Kevin for right now. And she thinks, he'll be fine. Holt's a good person. He's clean, he's quiet, but he won't shut up about Kevin. And it's driving her nuts. So her solution is get really drunk. And then Holt sends Kevin a digital phallus portrait. Or
otherwise known as a dick pic, yep.
But he sends it through the email, not through text. And so they have a little plan of sneaking back into the house and getting it deleted. And you could tell Kevin was kind of happy to see him and misses him, and was disappointed that he was only there to
get a book.
Yeah, it was just a dumb cover. But yeah, that's pretty much episode 5. PB&J, the Pontiac Bandit and Jake going on not a road trip, but he's driving the Pontiac Bandit to prison because he had a warrant for his arrest in
another state,
in Jersey, I believe it was. They thought they wiped his record clean, but that was just his New York record. And so Jake's going to give him one last, you know, Jake and Doug Judy.
Just because you're going to prison for, I think it was like 2 years or something like that. Or 5?
5 years.
5 years. It's like, just because you're going to prison doesn't mean it's not about the destination. It's about the journey. So it's like we can have tons of fun on the way to prison. Yeah. So, and I was just going to say, probably... I mean, I love Jake and Amy, but I don't think there's a better relationship than Jake and the Pontiac Bandit. They're the perfect best friends, and all their cute moments with each other and how they get excited and sing songs with each other and just like sort of really hype each other up, despite the fact that the Pontiac Bandit is constantly kind of fucking over Jake.
But you know, it's like, it's a really abusive relationship, because it's like he always does fucked up things to Jake, and then at the end he apologizes or make things right, and it's like instantly forgiven. So it's like, oh baby, I'm sorry I hit you, but you know how I get sometimes. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, because in one episode, doesn't the Pontiac Bandit like steal diamonds and tells Jake like, oh, I'm gonna help you catch this bad guy and give these diamonds back, but he ends up taking the diamonds. Oh no, he gives the diamonds back, but he does run away. But the reason he gets Jake forgives him is because he sets him up with like a free session of karaoke at the end.
Yeah, and it's hard to say which ones happen in what, because they're all kind of the same premise.
Yeah.
And just like this one, Doug Judy is gonna escape. He's like changing contacts in his phone so he can't call the right people, and it's kind of shitty. But before we get to that, Jake does a bunch of nice things to make it the best sort of trip ever. He gets a really nice car, like that's a convertible or something. I can't remember. Pontiac Grand something. Because he's the Pontiac Bandit, so it had to be a Pontiac.
It's a dream car kind of thing.
Matching outfits that had tigers and toucans on it.
Tigers and toques!
And there's a part later when the cop is just kind of like, what are you guys wearing? Like, tigers and toques. Yes, sir. Anytime they do something at the same time is great. And I like whenever they're together because it gives a chance for Andy Samberg to like rap. And when you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you kind of forget that he has this whole music career where he does rap and well, and like has really good rhymes and really fun beats. And so when he got to do his little bit, it's just like, oh yeah, how great. I love that shit.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of TV shows, you know, they have these best friend characters. And obviously these two are like heightened best friend characters to the point where it's like, it's almost unbelievable how in sync they are in their thoughts. But I feel like hanging out with your best friend and then like coming up with dumb raps is such like a normal friend thing to do that you don't really see that much. So like these, even though that they're two guys in like their 40s or whatever, like I would believe that these two guys just like hang out and rap with each other. So that's what part of the reason I like their relationship.
Damn, I'm talking a lot. He also like gets him like all of his favorite foods that he wants to eat. He's like, oh, if you could have one meal, what would it be? And he lists off this huge chain of stuff that would be kind of impossible to get.
Well, he doesn't list anything, right? He just says, I want one thing from every fast food place.
No, he goes like I want biscuits from Popeyes, tots from Sonic, fries from McDonald's, you know, chicken from this place, my mom's shoe fly pie, some hamburger flavored combos that have been discontinued for 10 years. And of course, like, Jake gets it all. And
he had it prepped and ready.
And in the trunk. It's so fantastic. But Boyle comes and kind of ruins their fun because he's like, Jake, you're going to ruin your career. You know he's going to try to get away. It's like, no, we're past that. He's accepted his fate. And Pontiac Bandit's just kind of like, no, I'm gonna escape no matter what. So they set up a little game of like who knows who better and who's the better friend. And it's like, what's my middle name? What's my biggest fear? And things like that. All good questions, and they're all getting them right.
So it's 9-9. It's down to the final question.
Oh, it's 9-8.
Okay.
And Pontiac Bandit just covers his ear and says, do I have an earring? And the first time I watched this, I kind of played along because I couldn't remember either. And it's just like
such a small detail.
Just a small detail that it doesn't matter. It's like, okay, I've never seen Craig Robinson have an earring in anything else, but it seems so fitting for this character. And I was like, yeah, he's got an earring. And Jake says the same thing, and nope, both wrong.
And see, like, I was worried it was going to be one of those like classic Brooklyn Nine fake outs where like he had it, but it was just like he just slid it off or something like that. But nope,
never had one. This is around the time of my favorite joke where Jake and Boyle are arguing over what's going to happen, and Boyle says like, well, what's going to happen when he eventually escapes? And Jake says, that sounds like a loaded question. And Boyle goes like, that's not even half my load. Just another great Boyle wordplay. Yeah, the only other things is one nice thing how they get Rosa in this episode is she's gonna call, and his like fourth surprise was her singing a song of Doug Judy's name, because he always sings her song like Rosa. And so she sings one that had like 35. There's like 35 verses and no chorus, and you made me memorize it. Anywho.
Pontiac Bandit's sister shows up.
Oh yeah, shows up with like some Craigslist goons. And they're gonna kill Jake and let Judy go.
And Pontiac Bandit's like, that's not part of the deal. And they're like, well, he's a cop. We don't give a shit. We're gonna kill him. And so
he doesn't know your name. It's fine. He's like, my name's Doug Charles. Like, don't say your name. And it's like, look, don't worry. He's probably already forgotten your name. My name is Doug Michael Charles. God, don't say it again.
But so they're gonna kill him, but Doug Judy helps Jake, get out of the situation, and so in doing that, he ends up going to prison. The real cops show up and are taken away, and Jake is like, all right, let me get a final minute with him, and they have their goodbye and everything, and then it cuts to sometime later, I think, and Jake gets a call from Doug Judy. And he's like, oh, yeah, man, I had this thing in my pocket that helped me escape. He's like, oh, that's a shame. But you could tell Jake was smiling because Jake did the one thing I didn't really expect Jake to do, which was break the law and help his friend escape.
Willing to circumvent within the law to like do his case his way or whatever.
Yeah.
But he never outright breaks the law. But yeah, he slipped his pin in Doug Judy's pocket and allowed him. I mean, Doug Judy just says, allowed me to slip out of my cuffs and out of prison. And it's like, wait, did you get into prison with the pin and break out? Or did you tuck and roll out of that car? It's like so vague how he gets out.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all.
But yeah, it was weird because this show has always been like, especially this season with the first episode being the good ones, where there's the whole thing of like, where the cops were supposed to be better, we're supposed to do the right thing. And obviously, throughout the past 8 seasons, we've been rooting for the Pontiac Bandit for the most part because he's Jake's one of Jake's best friends, and he's a good guy, despite the fact that he does keep committing crimes. Like, he's not the best person by any means. But, you would never expect Jake to do that. But when he did, it's kind of like, okay, like, I can kind of believe that this friendship is earned, this thing that Jake does. He's doing it for the right reasons, essentially. And I liked it. It was just a nice little moment and a nice send-off for that character who's been with the show since season 1.
Yeah. And we got a classic Doug Judy catchshrase. Slurp, slurp.
Slurp, slurp? You've never said slurp, slurp once.
Oh,
we say slurp, slurp in our house now. Just so you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's great. Going back to the very beginning, Trudy Judy, Doug Judy's sister, is trying to get Jake and Amy to watch Dog Judy, which, great name for Doug Judy to dog to be. And she's just like, oh, I'm going on vacation, and where you go, it is not appropriate for dogs. Like parasailing. And it's just like, oh, and there's going to be a lot of fucking. But he's okay with that and lifts up the dog, and the dog has this huge boner. Oh my God, it's like a third of him. So, some good shit. But yes, you were correct. This is my least favorite episode of the season. I felt it was a lot of the same, you know? And I'm kind of sick of Doug Judy messing with Jake so much. Jake has been nothing but like good to him after the second episode, because they were still kind of on the outs, but they're kind of cool by the end of the second time they meet up. But it's just like, I don't know, you could kind of see the jokes coming a mile away. It's not bad, but it's probably my least favorite Doug Judy episode, and it's definitely my least favorite episode of this season.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before, about the biggest weakness of this show is how predictable it has become, especially over the years. It's like, you sort of get used to the mannerisms of characters. The Boyle's
tempo of jokes.
Yeah, like Boyle works because you don't ever know quite what he's going to say, but he's going to say something stupid. And then Rose is always going to be straight-laced. Holt's always going to be, but like, I don't know. It just, you catch on what characters do and say, and it's like, okay, and if you're like us who watch so many sitcoms and stuff in general, the beats of these shows, and where it's going to end up, and most of the time who the killer is in whatever episode from the get-go, because it's like all the little things are laid out there, right? And it's like, you got to tell a story in 22 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's not like a fault, but it is a formula that is noticeable.
Yeah, absolutely. And of all the shows Michael Schur has worked on, this is the most obvious one when it comes to the writing. And it's so apparent when you marathon and you do like 10 episodes in a day, you could almost write your own episodes. You could just really feel those beats. But you like the song, so you don't mind the beat,
Yeah.
The music's good.
It's a cheeseburger or a pizza. You like it. You've had it a million times before, but it's still going to taste good.
Yep. All right. That's my Yoda. Episode 6, The Setup. This is the other lower rated episode. It's a 6.8 because once again, it's about cops having to deal with the consequences of their actions, and people don't like it. They just want the funny ha-has. But there's a bomb on a bus, a Marvelous Miss Maisel bus.
I forgot that part.
And
great show, by the way.
Never seen, but I've heard it. I think it was on like Family Guy or American Dad, where it's just like, oh, Marvelous Miss Maisel, the show that gets worse with every season, and that's what I've heard. Like, season 1's great, season 2's okay, it just gets worse as you watch it.
I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen season 3, but I loved every season.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it may be true that it gets worse, but it's like A+ to A-,
Okay.
or to A minus. I mean, not saying that they're all A's, but
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying. It's the quality I think is still there throughout all 3 seasons.
I'm not going to take Family Guy's word on quality of stuff because they'll throw anything under the bus just for an apparent joke. So.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, there's a bomb on a bus, and Jake wants to work it, but the FBI is working it, and he's kind of pissed that he doesn't get to. We kind of get an episode like this every season where Jake is told no, and he does it anyways, but at least this time, he kind of gets his comeuppance. He arrests a guy that he feels is potentially the bomber, and little did he know the bomber was already arrested because they found a fingerprint on it, and this guy was just an innocent dude, and has to come to terms with, oh my god, I made a mistake, and cops are not infallible, and he gets suspended for 5 months.
Yeah.
Of course, by like 2 episodes later, it's like 3 months later, so
Yeah,
you don't really
he's
feel
back.
the effects
Yeah.
of it.
Which I think...
Well, actually, it's next episode. Yeah, the Boyle one. He says, like, I've been suspended for 93 days. And it's just like, damn, okay, we're just going to hop right over that. I thought we'd have an episode, at least, of him at home having fun with Mac. Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Yeah, because... Go watch Mac. Yeah, because if this was a longer season, I imagine there would have been episodes where Jake has to figure out what to do if he wasn't a cop, or like you would have the episode where he was miserable at home and he has Mac and Mac's crying. I could see him being a new dad and be like, oh God, this is the worst. And then Mac does something and, he realizes, oh, I love this kid a lot. Like I actually did have a good time hanging out with him all day. And that gives you more reason at the end of like why he does what he does. And sort of that's a little bit more character growth you could have explored. But I think it still worked in the realm of the show where it's like, okay, 5 months or however long he's suspended, comes back next episode, he's back, essentially.
Let's see. One of my favorite jokes is just like, he's talking to the FBI guy and like, I have a better rapport with the uniform officer. Is like, hi, Officer Marzipan, and like, oh, hey, Detective Peralta, and then he's like bragging about him being friends with, Officer Marzipan, and it's like, really, that guy? We're like trying to get rid of him. Like he has like 9 complaints, and he changed his name to David Duke Marzipan. And it's just like a funny reoccurring joke throughout the episode. Our B story, Amy and Rosa are trying to get O'Sullivan drunk because O'Sullivan says he can get Jake off from this, and they think, well, he's only going to get Jake off if they tank Amy's proposal. It's not true at all. He actually just cares about cops getting away with doing shitty things. So Amy's trying to get him drunk, and she can't handle her liquor, as we've seen before. This is actually the appearance of 9 Drink Amy.
Oh.
And 9 Drink Amy is a genius, or at least she proclaims it herself. And actually we get more than 9 drinks because she keeps drinking after that.
I was going to say, how many drinks Amy is it before blackout Amy, where she's just, not functioning anymore?
But she does get to, like, sober up a little, so maybe it knocks her down a few drinks and back up. But she can't handle it, so she trades places with Rosa because O'Sullivan's a racist asshole and can't tell the difference between Hispanic women.
Yep.
So they keep doing that, and they get shit-faced, and then they end up both kind of, like, showing up at the same time, and whoopsie.
And that should have been a funny bit of like, man, I'm so drunk I'm seeing double.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, it would have been a little unbelievable that they clearly look
totally different.
Yeah. So.
And then they try to warn Jake, and like Amy she's talking to Holt and trying to not sound drunk, and so they suggest like a British accent. So she's just like doing a British accent to Holt, and it's just adorable. Amy's just so damn cute. And when they find him, Jake's like, wearing a hat and taking pictures, being all covert. And Amy pulls up all drunk and is just like, ooh, I like you in that hat. You look like a little narc. He's like, you like that? And like, oh yeah. And it's just like Jake has a bunch of like die-hard and nerdy sort of fetishes when it comes to Amy, and she has just like the most mundane, boring, bureaucratic sort of fetishes, like,
don't kink shame her, man.
I won't. Hey, I will dress up like the guy who created the Dewey Decimal System if I get to be with Amy Santiago. But of course, she's married to a real life model, so don't think I have a chance.
Yeah, her husband's pretty handsome.
I don't think so. I think he's kind of weird looking.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's because he's a little older, but like back in the day, he was in like Mariah Carey videos and stuff. But it's like, I can see his physique, but I don't know. I think he's got a weird face. I don't see him and go like, that guy was a model. Yeah. Oh, I better look. No. Just let's see. Oh yeah, the B story is just Terry and Boyle are competing for Scully's candy order. And O'Sullivan's been messing with them and like replacing their candy with sand or apples or something like that, and breaking the vending machines and just kind of rocking the boat and creating unrest. Not a lot of. That's probably my least favorite subplot in any of these. They just didn't really have any good jokes. So we're gonna move on. Episode 7, Game of Boils. Pappy Boyle dies. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. This is a 8.2 episode. So one of the highest.
I figured this episode would be higher because the Boyle clan is a fun group and they're ridiculous. It's like, I really wish they did a crossover with It's Always Sunny, and so you'd have the McPoyles with the Boyles, because it's like the Boyles are just as gross as the McPoyles in a sense,
but they're wholesome.
But they're wholesome about it, where it's wholesome gross versus like downright downright sewage people gross.
Yeah, and it's like they both have like weird ways of dressing and behaving, and they both kind of walk this weird incestuous line. But like with the Boyles, it's head rubs and
they always say I love you to each other before, like whenever one person leaves the room, it's like you have to say I love you or something.
I mean, it's everywhere in their house. A Boyle always says I love you, which becomes a plot point for this. So Pappy Boyle dies, and I didn't write down his name, but one of the cousins is like, we're having a problem. We can't find the will. So Jake, being bored out of his mind for being suspended, is looking for a case. Terry's there because his kids keep trying to trip him, make him fall downstairs for TikTok. The farm is covered in nutria, which are these giant rat-like creatures. I know they're a real thing, but I wouldn't think that they were native to America. Seems like an Australian thing, but I don't know. But I guess they're
basically like gophers, or like look like just big
groundhogs or something.
Yeah, that's what I know.
But they're smart and they could open up doors and you could milk them. And that's one of my favorite jokes. It's like, oh, you can milk them, and Jake's just like, but should you? It's like he has really good timing on his jokes. Like he knows how to hold it. In the next one, there's a joke that cracked me up. So they can't find his will. Jake suspects foul play. Turns out a nutria got into the rat poison. Pappy drank its milk, killed him. But he was 92 or something like that, so it's not a big deal. So, but they do like interrogation of the whole family, and they think Pappy's son is going to get the farm, but he doesn't really care for it. And there's one joke where they're like, we're going to make him as uncomfortable as we can for the interrogation. And it cuts to him in a rocking chair with like a blanket on his legs, drinking tea. And here's an inconsistency. Jake's just like, why'd you put him in a rocking chair? And the boy's like, it's a farmhouse. All chairs are rocking chairs.
And then in that same shot in the background.
In the background is the fucking kitchen chairs, not rocking chairs. I know it's just a joke, but don't cut directly to that. Cut to a reaction to Terry, and then cut back to that guy, and that one little beat lets you forget about it.
Because all you had to do really was like turn the camera an inch.
Pull the chairs out of the scene.
Yeah, it was such an easy thing to fix.
Yeah, and it's such a dumb thing to nitpick, but it just, my eyes laser focused onto that.
Mine too.
Yeah, but even though it looks like they made him comfortable, Boyle's just like, oh, I made his tea really weak, and he drinks it. So it's like, oh, what's wrong with his tea? Why are you treating me like a criminal? It's good stuff.
Yeah, like this felt like it was trying to be a Knives Out parody, but it didn't lean into the Knives Out aspect. Like I would have liked if, because I can't remember, there should have been a moment where Jake does like the Daniel Craig accent. He does? Okay, that's what I thought.
Where he's at the casket and he's like, looks like we have a murder.
Okay, right.
Oh, I shouldn't have leaned on the Knives Out.
But like, it would have been fun to see them sort of do more of that stuff as opposed to just like, okay, well, it's about this family and a murder of the patriarch, or not
Yeah, patriarch.
Yeah, patriarch, and here's the detective solving the crime. I'm like, I just wanted a little bit more references.
Sure.
Which sometimes can be like, a show can just lean too much into it. It's like, I don't need to like an exact parody of this thing, but I want a little bit more Knives Out.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
Big reveal is Boyle's not a Boyle.
Yeah, did not see that coming.
His mom slept with someone else, confirmed by his dad, and one of the jokes I like was just like, but he looks just like him. And like, no, it's how much they're cuddled as the babies. It's kind of like growing a square watermelon. It's like they're just kind of mushed into a Boyle-looking state.
Yeah. My only thing that I wished for this episode really was I wanted to see the return of Ryan Phillippe as like the good-looking Boyle.
They even have a setup for that joke. He's just like, I'm only a half Boyle. I'm like cousin Stephanie, and it cuts to like a handsome-looking Boyle, and he's eating cereal, and he's like, I know what I am. And he leaves it like, that would have been a perfect Ryan Phillippe.
Yeah. He had to show up for one day, do 2 hours of work maybe, and then go home, collect a paycheck. Because they got so many other guest stars who come back to this season. It's just a shame they didn't get him.
Now Boyle isn't a Boyle, but he is the one true Boyle.
The one true Boyle.
We have the grandmother doe, which is a callback from the mother doe, a starter doe that you keep and you pinch off and put into your next batch, and then you add a little more to it, so it's kind of like, did you know Kit Kats? There's never Kit Kat waste. Whenever they have defects or whatever, they just grind them up and put them into new Kit Kats. And they've done that from, like, day one. So it's like, technically, you could have, like, Kit Kats from years ago in your Kit Kat. I mean, probably not.
Probably not, yeah.
But,
they're pretty popular.
But yeah, so that's kind of the idea with the mother doe. But no one's been able to open this one up because it is just rusted shut. And Jake convinces Charles to give it a try and prove that he is a Boyle. He does pop it open, even after Terry tries to like loosen it. You can't get it done.
And Terry's the strongest man in the history of the show.
And it's funny, in every episode, he makes mention about how big he is, how beautiful he is, and his body is so important. And then when you get to the last episode, he's just like, stop talking about my body. I'm more than what I am. It's like, every episode this season, you've talked about how amazing you are. And he has a funny joke in the Lake House episode where it's like, should I run back and get the EpiPen? Well, I haven't done cardio in like 20 years, but it should be fine. And he starts running. He's just like, oh my God, it's instantly terrible. Because all he does is weightlifting, I didn't catch that joke the first time around. And then when he comes back, he's just like drenched in sweat. And you would just think like, oh, he's a big athletic guy. Of course he can run. Nope, not at all.
Cardio is a different thing.
What else is in this episode? While we're still on the farm, one of my favorite jokes is like they sent away labs for hair to see, because they found a hair on the rat poison. They think it was one of the Boyles. Turns out it was the Nutria. But they get hairs from everybody. And Boyle's talking to Jake just like, well, why don't we just wait for the labs? And like, oh, well, it may be a while because they needed to get a new lab guy because their old one was allergic to beakers. And Bo's just like, oh, that's a shame. There's beakers everywhere there.
It's weird how like good they are as detectives, yet sometimes they're just like the dumbest fucking people. Like,
so then our B story is Amy and Rosa are trying to hook Holt up
on the dating apps.
On a dating app where you select dang for bad and dang for good. And he's going through it and he's just like, oh, this one's for PhDs only. And Rose has to tell him it actually stands for pretty huge dicks. And then he's like, oh, I guess this one for MDs is, and then they like cut. So medium dicks. I could only assume.
I would assume, yeah.
They set him up, and of course Holt doesn't want anything to do with this guy, but it's really to teach Amy and Rosa to like stay out of his personal life in that sort of way, and like don't undermine him. And he just has like small things of like why he wouldn't like him. His like shoes are slip-ons, and anything that isn't like a specific type of shoe is considered a flip-flop or something. Yeah. His watch has a cloth band to it. Just all these like really ridiculous things. But at the very end, he realizes, this isn't for him, and he's just going to be a single guy forever. But then we hear a call from outside. And who should our wondering eyes appear? Kevin.
Yeah. Because he even said, Holt says to them, is like, this isn't like the movies or TV shows. Like, no one comes running in the rain and to say, I still love you. Yeah. And then that's exactly
what happened. And they have an on-screen kiss. It's the first time we've ever seen these characters kiss on screen. And it's just so damn sweet. Yeah. Episode 8, Renewal, got an 8.2. Also a very high-rated episode. They, now Holt and Kevin have got back together, and they decide they're going to renew their vows because when they got married, it was such a quickie thing, they didn't know if it would ever get, turned over, so they had to do it, non-ceremoniously. And this is where Holt is going to announce that he's retiring, and it's a shock to everybody, but he realizes he needs to focus on his marriage, and he needs to really prioritize Kevin over the job.
Honestly, this might be my least favorite episode of the season, I think. Maybe not, but I think I liked all the wedding stuff. It was when Holt was leaving the wedding and breaking into this guy's house to try and do it. It felt like just this weird, wacky scenario that I didn't really care about. And especially because we were coming towards the end, it's we spent a lot of the season wondering if they're going to get back together, and then it's the day of the renewal. It's Holt should never have been in this situation in the first place. And I get this is important to the police force and the people, and it's the kind of thing if Holt's gonna kind of bail on Kevin, this is a good reason to do it. It's just sort of this whole silliness of, I don't know, I was worried that they weren't going to be together, and then they get back together, and then the episode immediately after is, and I didn't want that to be the episode before the finale. It just felt like another sort of rushed drama thing for these two characters who I just wanted to be happy together, not have another fight. But it did lead to Holt seducing an old woman, which was hilarious. So I love that part of it.
Yeah, they have to break into O'Sullivan's man cave because he hacked their proposal and messed with all the numbers, and they need to try to prove it. And so they have to get into his house where he lives with his mother in her house. And he goes by Maxwell to seduce O'Sullivan's mother.
Well, Jake pitched him Maxwell. Yeah, he said, I'm not going to do that. And then the scenario came, and he's like, I'm Maxwell. To which Jake smiled the biggest smile possible, because he loves when his stupid plans come together.
Yeah, he's just we gotta, you know what happens when gas builds up in the pipe.
It needs a release.
And you see Jake mouthing the whole thing. Oh, and then, it needs a release, and then he goes,
great stuff.
Yeah, but one of my favorite jokes at the beginning when it comes to Jake's timing, after Holt announces that he's gonna retire. Oh man, can you hear my voice?
You want some water or something?
No, I mean it's not that. It's just I don't really talk a lot from day to day. When I'm at work, I'm on a forklift. I can't hear people. There's no bother talking to them. When I get home, Lauren's asleep. I don't talk a whole bunch, so it's this is just the most I've talked probably all week.
I mean, most people find you annoying anyway.
Yeah,
so.
I know. Why does anybody even listen to this? So Jake is saying, you can't retire. We still didn't have our final big mission where I save your life, and then you come to me in the hospital, and I say, how can I ever repay you? And you say, you already did. Then you hop onto your motorcycle and you drive off in the sunset. And Holt's like, well, I don't have a motorcycle, but me and Kevin did just buy some tandem bikes. And Jake's just like, fuck you, Raymond Holt. So one of the funny running jokes is Jake makes bad investments. Yeah. And so I have a list of those things.
Let's hear them.
He bought for $912, or at least he bought for some amount, and then he lost $912 with a Patrick Ewing Top Shot, which I didn't know what Top Shots were. Mm-hmm. Do you know what a Top Shot is?
I know I do. I don't remember at this moment, so tell me, and I'll be like, well, oh yeah, of course.
It's okay. So there's a thing called NFTs, non-fungible tokens.
Yep. And
it's pretty much buying digital art that you don't physically own.
Right.
You have the rights to it, but I don't really know how it works. I've
listened to podcasts where people describe it, and I still don't know how it works.
It's dumbest shit. You know, it's like, you know what I can do? I could right click on my mouse and save that picture to my computer. Look who owns it for free. And it's like, I don't, why, how can you own a digital thing? It's so dumb. I don't know. I don't get it. But I guess Top Shots are they're moments from basketball.
Right.
And you can buy like packs and they'll be like random moments. So maybe you'll get a good one or not, just like trading cards.
Yeah.
And you just are like, oh, this person did a slam dunk. This is a really good Top Shot. And it's just like it's like owning gifts. I don't understand it. And people are making tons of money off of it.
Yeah.
And it's dumb. It's like the biggest waste of rich people money. I don't get how you could just spend thousands of dollars on a piece of video that you can YouTube. Like, how do you display it? No, so you have to buy a TV and then put it on your wall, and then you have this endless GIF of someone doing a slam dunk, and you go, yeah, I own this digital slam dunk. Stupid. Dumbest thing ever. So he bought that, lost some money on it. Then he traded it for Rock Coin, and that doesn't go so well.
Which is sort of Bitcoin owned by The Rock.
Owned by The Rock, yes.
Right.
And then Mets Coin, which is like money, but the Mets or something. And then he bought an NFT of Michelangelo from the Ninja Turtles eating pizza, and that fails too. And he's like, oh, what's happening to Turtle Bucks? So yeah, he's constantly just losing money.
I don't remember if it's in the finale or just somewhere in the season, but we also have a moment where I think they mention Amy beats Wario in Mario Kart.
Yeah, he says something just like, you're just mad because I beat you in Mario Kart. And like, beginner's luck.
Beginner's luck, yeah.
So
okay.
I'm not sure what episode that was, but
yeah.
But he does, I think it's in episode 1 or 2. It's in episode 1 when Amy and Holt are having their weird stuff, and it's like, you noticed it day 1, where for months I've been acting weird around Jake, and all he wanted to talk is about someone called Wario. Yeah, he talks about it a lot.
Wario cheats!
So one of my favorite lines is they're talking about the numbers for their plan. And Jake says, like, you know, Amy would probably marry Numbers if she could. And she makes some comments, and he goes, Numbers can't be a father to your child, Amy. Love that.
She just seems like so confused. Like, what the hell is that?
Like, what is that? So, yeah, they have to break in and not let Kevin know. And they have a laptop that Holt's been working on, but he pretends he's watching porn instead of actually working. That somehow that's better. But then he blames it on Jake, and the porn is handyman fixes squeaky door then fucks customer. and he's like, oh yeah,
it's like the Curious Case of Benjamin Button. You know, it's a really long title.
Yeah,
but
and it's like, is this true, Jake? And like, yeah. I'd like to say I'm surprised. And then they worry about Cheddar. Because when Holt's gone, Cheddar acts up, and Rosa says, just give him a bone. And so we get a call back to the famous bone, which was funny, but I don't think it was necessary. This isn't the first episode with Cheddar. He's in a few. But if you forgot, original Cheddar died. This is new Cheddar. And I was like, this dog looks a little lighter than original Cheddar. Well, because Cheddar died. And now we got some common bitch. Holt doesn't know Mac's name. He purges information for like tax code and stuff like that, and he just calls him little guy.
Which is something I do. I forget people's name all the time, and even people I've met like a ton. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, what's up, buddy? How you doing, guy? Like I will use just general.
Yeah. I'm always like, hey, what's up, man? When I'm talking to people, when it's like animals or little kids, it's buddy. Like, hey, bud, what's going on?
Yeah, buddy's the go-to for kids.
So they get trapped in the basement because O'Sullivan's mom realizes they aren't who they say they are, and they have to try to make a phone call, but they don't remember any like phone numbers because it's all in your phone.
Which I've had this conversation with my fiance, and she's like, "Oh, do you know my phone number?" I was like, "No, why would I know your phone number? Like, I know my parents' phone numbers, and that's it." Like, I remember like my best friend's phone number from when we were kids, because like it was before we had cell phones, and you had to like dial phones normally. So it was just like his phone number and my parents' phone numbers. I've never memorized anyone else's phone number ever.
My parents and my aunts, if I sat down and thought, I could probably get it. I couldn't rattle it off now. My first phone number from when I lived in like Southern California as a kid, I remember that one because they ingrain it when you're a kid. You know that one.
In case there's a problem, call the home at this number. Yeah.
So yeah, I totally am on their side. The only number, and just like us or like you, the only number he remembers is his best friend from when he was a kid, and so he calls. And the mom picks up and doesn't remember him. And he makes a joke about, like, don't you remember we would, like, try on your bras? And she hangs up on him and turns to Holt and is just like, it was really hard. We were learning how to unhook bras. You're so lucky growing up gay. Good joke. So then, Kevin comes, saves the day, dresses up like a cop with Rosa, and, because you can't have actual cops showing up to his house at all, so these two nobodies come, save the day. Holt admits he's going to retire, and, Kevin's like, that's not what I really wanted. I just wanted you to prioritize me over work, but Holt's like, nah, we're doing this. But their proposal passes, and Holt's not going to retire. He's going to stay on in a reduced role to help roll out the plan, but he needs help, and he's bringing Amy with him, and with a substantial raise, he says, and she's going to be a chief. So, congratulations, Amy Santiago. She does her little dork dance. Lots of elbows and fist pumps. And, one of the sweetest lines, which I didn't notice the first time around, but the second time, was, so after they get out of the basement, they go back to do the wedding and just run through it. Holt purges the tax code out of his brain to make room for this moment. And Kevin is saying, like, we don't need to do this. Everyone except family has gone home. And it's like the 9-9 is there. And so, like, Kevin is now, like, truly accepted them as family.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Because he's always had, like, an issue with them, like, from the get-go. But he learned to like them a little more. But now he considers them family.
Yeah, the only person he liked from the get-go, didn't he like Rosa or something? Or he liked one of them.
One of them.
Yeah. And then the other ones just kind of grew on him. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously, he didn't like Jake at all.
At all. And even for a long time.
Yeah.
But he put up with them. But I think, like, he had fun with Jake multiple times. And it's like he brought something out of him that he didn't necessarily know he had. So he kind of regretfully liked Jake.
Like, an episode I love is when Jake has to protect Kevin, and they both dressed as like the creepy perverts at the library. Yep. And they're just wearing matching outfits, and it just seemed like something Kevin would absolutely not want to do, but it's just like the fact that he was willing to do it. I was just like, I like this dynamic between these two.
And that's pretty much all of that episode. Final episode.
Ooh. Took a long time to get here.
Yeah. It's called The Last Day, Part 1 and 2. These are two very high-rated episodes. It's 9.6 and 9.7.
Lots of finales typically, when they stick the landing, get a pretty high rating.
And they really do. I think this has a lot of callbacks. Like, a lot.
See, I didn't know this was going to be a heist episode. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of surprised when we got through the season and there hadn't been a heist yet, because that's just been a staple of the show. So it makes sense that it's a heist. Yeah. And I like that it wasn't necessarily about the heist at the time. It was about, I'm saying goodbye, and here's this heist to sort of give things away to everybody. But at the same time, I was just like, I didn't care about a heist as the last thing.
Because they're always backstabbing and running around. You can't sit in moments.
Don't get me wrong, like, all the heist episodes are great because it's about everyone on the squad. The show really hits a stride when they're all in a group doing a thing together. That being said, this is the worst version of themselves, like scheming and doing like these weird convoluted plots that just kind of like don't make sense. And it's just like, this isn't necessarily how I wanted to see. I kind of, even though it's kind of cliche to do like one final case, like I kind of wanted to see them do a case together, and there wasn't any crime. It was just how do I say goodbye, which is fine, but I didn't love this episode. Although there was lots of things in it I did love.
Yeah, lots of good stuff.
I thought it was a good finale, but it wasn't a great one.
Yeah, it's definitely not on par with, like, say, Parks and Rec finale.
One of the best finales of all time.
But I would say it's just as good as The Office finale, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're going to do a heist, and, like, once again, Terry's saying, oh, I'm not going to be a part of it. So Holt is teamed up with Hitchcock and Scully. Amy and Rosa are together, and Jake and Boyle are. And their first thing of how to pick teams is drawing out of a bag of teeth. And a line I like is just like we live in a hellmouth. I should have wrote down a little more context to that, but it's just like these are all teeth
from barroom brawls.
From barroom brawls, and how disgusting New York is. And he says, we live in a hellmouth. And I think that's great. And Jake admits to Amy that he is leaving the 9-9. He wants to just be a dad like his dad wasn't. And Amy's job is way more important than him being a detective.
Which we pretty much said when this season started, where we think all the characters end up. We said Amy would probably take Holt's job, Holt would retire, Jake would leave the force, Terry would probably get promoted to something.
Well, Terry's going to take...
Well, yeah, I know that now, but... and then Hitchcock and Scully...
both retire, right?
Both, I think we said either they retire or they just, do whatever. But, I mean, we pretty much got the general idea, but I didn't... I mean, Holt didn't retire. He just moved on to something else. And Amy, we kind of got... We couldn't decide whether Terry would take Holt's job or Amy would, but it makes sense what they did.
Yeah.
But we were right on the money of Jake leaving the force.
Absolutely. One great joke is that the heist would end on the Brooklyn Bridge, and Amy's just like, is that important to us? And then it cuts to the intro.
Which, great joke.
Good.
Yeah.
So good. Very, very funny.
It's like, we just wanted to walk to that, we went to that falafel shop. It's like, that falafel place was so good, though.
But it's like, why would that be? That's the Brooklyn Bridge is way behind you. If the falafel place isn't on the bridge, so why is the bridge important? But whatever. Good joke. Jake tries to do his lineup creation where he makes the guy sing Backstreet Boys.
Backstreet Boys, yeah, but with different songs.
And it just doesn't work.
Yeah, which is so weird because that's easily the greatest opener of the show, at least in a lot of people's opinions. It's funny that's like one thing that they make a callback to in the final episode is just that one joke that joke has an audience outside of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like that joke has surpassed the show itself, which, I mean, it's a great bit, but it's just so weird. Like when you think Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you think of that opener.
Yes. Well, since we're talking about callbacks, there were some that there were more, and I just forgot to write them down. But here's some callbacks from previous things. But Bing Pot.
Bing Pot, yeah.
Bing Pot. Teddy proposing, even though he knows Amy is happily married. Gina saying, "You just drink cement," which took me a second to go, was that a thing? And it's like, oh yeah, she was putting cement in everybody's like food and drink, and they're gonna meet it. And then Holt going, meet more Zorp, which was a good one because that's from episode 1. So yeah, they're doing the heist, and they're all kind of... I mean, the nice thing about this heist is they were kind of all together the whole time. They were all rushing to the same places, and they weren't always split up. But in order to get a little bit ahead, Holt reveals his tattoo. This tattoo that we've been hearing about forever, and it turns out to be Kevin's head on Cheddar's body in the tramp stamp position.
Yeah, because he's told the tattoo artist, I want a portrait of Kevin and Cheddar.
Yeah.
To which he's like, I don't know why, but the artist just combined them. So I was like, okay, that's pretty funny. Because that seems like, I mean, I don't know why the tattoo artist wouldn't confirm this kind of stuff or whatever, but it does seem like the kind of thing Holt would say is just like, oh, give me a portrait of the two things I love the most. And then since he's not a tattoo guy, didn't check on it until after it was done.
And I think they run to Wunch's grave and like
Another great bit.
Holt
Just one last dig at Wunch.
Holt puts a balloon arch, which is like it's a multiple thing. Like balloon arches were one thing, Wunch is another thing, and they combine the two.
And they were just like, "Oh, this is a nice flourish for the heist." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't do this for the heist. I do this every week."
And it's like, for being such a like sensitive, caring person, like that is a fucked up thing to weekly celebrate someone's death.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
And then there was even another call. I mean, I don't necessarily know if it's a callback, but he said some insult to Wunch, and I forget what it is. And then just Rosa goes, "Nice," because she was always like, "There's the idea of Holt just doing zingers." Rosa's always like in full support of it.
Yep. Gina's statue is still up on like outside on the balcony.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. What's his name? The homeless guy that dresses like Boyle sometimes. What's his name?
Boyle guy.
Yeah. He like emerges from behind it. It turns out like his yearly income is what he makes on these heists.
On the heist, yeah.
So Gina does come back. She has like an armored car taking the MacGuffin around, and Rosa's jumping on the roof, and people are jumping in front of the cars, and Jake is attached to the bottom in a magnet suit.
Which is so dangerous.
Yeah, like there's a lot of moving parts on the bottom of a car. That's bad. Yada yada, backstabbing.
Classic heist stuff.
Yeah.
I did like the recurring joke of Gina's sweater or hoodies just constantly being a surprise reveal, another surprise reveal, another surprise reveal again,
and then like another surprise because like she takes her teeth out, and so it even has the lisp on her sweater.
Yeah,
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And she's rich, but I can't remember why. How did she get rich? Was it an app? Because I know like one of the few things like she was pitching apps at like the high school reunion. But
she got pregnant with Ryan Phillippe, and I think he had just had money, and so she just married into him because I think he made a bunch of money being handsome or something like. I can't really remember.
Yeah.
But I think he had money and she just married into it. And I could be wrong though.
We get the return of Pimento. He pulls up to help.
Love
Rosa.
Jason Mantzoukas.
Love him. He's just good in everything, and I don't care if he acts almost the same way in everything. Yeah. It's great.
He's Rafi and everything, and I'm okay with it.
And he has to like go to Russia to fight some wolves. He has to like kill the alpha, wear its skin, and ingrain himself with the tribe just to kill them all. He's doing some weird thing. He's always doing weird stuff with animals. But that turns out to just like Rosa is distracting Amy with saying, "Oh, I want to get back with Pimento," but it's just a ruse because she's just like, you straight people always just feel like you need to be in a relationship. And
yeah, a happy ending always needs to end with someone in a relationship, and I like that was like the thing for her was, nope, this episode's gonna end where she's not with anybody.
And she's like, well, there is this girl I have been seeing. Like, really? Like, no, it's so easy to get you. Yeah, I like that. Rose is she's an independent woman.
Yep,
love it. Blop, blop, blop. They all we're going to have a big reveal at the end. Boyle finds out Jake is leaving and is having a big, hissy fit about it. They have a fun, flashback where they're, wearing these big scarves.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, I thought they weren't going to mention it, and that would be the joke, was just, cut back to them wearing a ridiculous thing and not talk about it, but...
We were into those fashionable scarves for a month.
I think it worked. Did it? So yeah, he admits that he's gonna retire to everybody, and everyone's sad. The whole episode they were talking about Terry is the Kool-Aid man, and that he could just bust through a wall at any time, and he's really self-conscious about it, even though the whole season he's talking about how great his body is. And then to save the day, because they're locked in a storage facility, he Kool-Aid man's out of the wall. Yep. And they're like, no, do another one. Like, no, I'm only gonna do the one.
We get a nice cameo from Andy Samberg's real life wife, Joanna Newsom, who is playing the cello for a kind of celebratory thing, and he's like, "Oh, the cello sucks" or something, and she's like, "Oh, well, you're ugly," and so it's just nice that these two people get to make fun of each other.
I was wondering when she was gonna show up because, Amy had her husband. I felt like, why wouldn't she show up? I mean, I guess she could go, "I'm not an actress, I'm a musician."
Sure. But I mean, she's been in I feel like the celebrity spot. Like, people know who she is.
Yeah. I think she was in...
Doesn't matter. She did an acting role.
She did an acting role. I'm pretty sure it's in. But what was that movie called?
Name that Pokemon.
How do you spell Joaquin Phoenix?
Joa.
Really? Oh, yeah. Quin. Inherent Vice.
Oh, yeah. She was in Inherent Vice?
I think so.
Or are you just thinking of, what's-her-face, Watterson?
Or maybe she just did music for it.
This is all super...
No. See, there she is.
Oh, look at that.
Yes.
Good for her for getting a Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
Yeah. I love Joanna Newsom. She has a really weird voice, and her music is beautiful. I love all of her harp stuff. Big fan of Joanna Newsom.
Cool.
I don't think it's your music, Steve.
I mean, I may like it. It's just if you told me to name a Joanna Newsom song, I'd be like, I don't know, Toxic?
Yep. So then it turns out the winner of the heist is fucking Hitchcock. Hitchcock comes back from vacation, retirement, and just buys the like thing that you had to have at the end, but from Ted? Not Ted. What is that guy's name? That's annoying. I'll look up Joanna Newsom and stuff, but I'm not looking that up.
Anyway, Hitchcock wins.
Hitchcock wins, and it's really upsetting. Because the only person who hasn't won, besides Scully, but Scully would never win, is Boyle. Boyle never got to win. I feel like
a win for Hitchcock is a win for Scully.
True, absolutely. So of the main cast, of people who've been in the intro from the very first episode, Boyle didn't get to win it.
Nope.
And I don't think he really ever cared. It was more like, I want to help Jake win it.
Right.
So it makes sense if anybody's not going to. It would be him.
I feel like all the other characters feel like they have something to prove, where Boyle has always felt like, I never have to prove myself.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm a good detective and good at my job. Like, I'm just happy to be part of the crew kind of thing.
And I like that Gina mentions, like, oh, my heist is the most popular one. And the second highest rated episode of all time is her heist episode. So that's kind of a funny, nod and a wink to the audience. But it's good stuff. It ends, we flash... Wait, do you have anything more before?
I was just going to say, we get some goodbyes for like sort of essentially the last time these characters are interacting with each other as a fully on the force team. We get... Well, this is the first time Hitchcock has been physically in an episode versus just on a computer screen, which I don't know if that's like a vaccine, a COVID thing, or he's just like worried about catching it or whatever. But
he could have a pre-existing condition where they felt it was best.
Because him and Scully are older gentlemen, but I like that he came back for the finale and they hugged each other, and he's like, "Oh, you got some barbecue sauce in your collar." He's like, "Yeah, I left it there for you," which is like just classic them.
Rose and Amy say goodbye in a really sweet moment. Like whenever Amy's like tearing up, whether it's like for comedy or serious stuff, it's just like really effective. She's good at crying.
And you could it felt like this was definitely the last day of shooting, and they're done on purpose to like get everyone's natural, like, this is the last scene we're all going to share with each other kind of thing. And because you can just tell everyone was kind of choked up, which is always great in a finale. And Amy and Rosa tell each other that they love each other because they've essentially been each other's best friends for a long time, despite their clear differences in terms of personality. They know the other will always have the other one's back, so that's nice. And Boyle doesn't really get like a goodbye with Jake, but he doesn't really need a goodbye because they're always going to be
the friends that actually stay together outside of work.
And Gina's been gone from the show so long, like, I think she's in the background maybe talking to Boyle.
She dips real quick. She says, like, see ya.
And then we get the final heartfelt moment from, essentially the two main characters, which is Holt and Jake, where Holt tells Jake that he's proud of the man he's become. And when he started, Jake was this silly little boy, and Jake grew up a lot in the past 8 years, and he's very proud of him. and Holt's like, you've made me a more fun individual and helped me out in a lot of ways, and I guess we both rubbed off on each other. Title of your sex movie, did I say that right? And, you know, basically tears in Jake's eyes. Is like, yes sir, it was perfect. And just this loving respect. Like, this is my favorite scene in this episode, just because it's just the accumulation of the entire season and this nice little sweet moment. And then we see Holt do this huge smile, and I can just see the Reddit memes and stuff is like, that smile, that damn smile, or whatever, you know, because we don't really see Holt smile a lot, and then he's just got a very nice smile and just a very beautiful way before they walk out. Also, the janitor in this episode is the creator of the show, who he gets 2 little cameos.
Nice. Yeah, he always does a fantastic job. Like, yeah, he's the best.
Yep. So that was a nice little nod to the creator of the show.
I didn't catch that.
And so we have them hit the elevator and the doors close, and cut to
1 year later.
1 year later, and Terry's doing the briefing as the new captain. Boyle's in the room. I don't think
Boyle has his own Boyle.
Boyle has his own Boyle now.
Yeah.
Boyle's kind of like
the cool guy.
the cool guy. And then, you know, magic smoke comes out. Jake walks in with a top hat. He's like, it's heist time. And then Terry's like, you don't work here anymore. And then, like, all the other characters kind of pop out. And he's like, sir, it doesn't matter. We're doing this every year. And he's like, you win. And then give one final 9-9. And then, which is like, of course they would end with, you know, one last 9-9. And I would not be against once a year they release a heist special. But I mean, we've seen 8 heists, so I don't know if we necessarily need to do it again. Like, if the show ends, I'm happy. I mean, I'm happy that the show is over. But if they just occasionally do like a reunion episode and they do another heist or something, that'd be fun, and see where they're at. You know, a couple years from now.
It'd be nice. Of the reunions, like, I don't care if the Friends ever come back. I don't care if we get a Seinfeld reunion or anything like that.
The fact that they hyped up that whole Friends reunion thing, like, I thought it was going to be like an episode, but it was just like them talking about it. It's like, who cares?
A legit reunion.
Yeah.
I would like for there to be a purpose, almost if it was like Jake and Amy's son is going to the academy because he's following him in his parents' footsteps or something. But that's like 20 years from now. I mean, I guess they could always just pretend fast forward, but if that was never going to happen, I wouldn't mind. And in 5 years they do a reunion, or 10 years or something like that. That'd be fine.
So anyway, I think
hold on. I want to change one thing to the final scene.
Okay.
If I could. We see him go up to his desk and slide off his name placard.
Uh-huh.
I think it would have been great if he picked up the little officer figure he does in the intro, and he just kind of looks at it and then puts it in his pocket, and you have that same shot from the title card. I thought that would have been, because it's not like everybody takes their placard home or whatever, but that actually kind of means something. That's from the first episode. That's my one small change. Yeah.
I mean, I know they were celebrating together as a team and everything, their last day together, but I figured another scene you could have done is you could have had Holt call Jake into the office, and it's like, this is the hard part. It's like, you're no longer in the force. I'm going to need your gun and badge kind of thing, which, I mean, Jake did early in the season when he was suspended, but like to see Jake like take off the thing that he loves so much, like willingly, and give it to Holt, and then Holt say that to him of like, how proud I am of you and all that stuff. I think it could have like just heightened the emotion a little bit more, but ultimately I liked what happened with it anyway. And you don't need this whole, you didn't need it, but it would have been nice to see, I think. So any other, I mean, do you want to talk about, we're going long, but you want to bring up any episodes that really stood out to you in the series, or any final thoughts, favorite characters?
Final thoughts.
Okay.
2 main thoughts and a question, really. Cool. One, like, this season got a lot of hate for being, woke, but this show has always been like very LGBTQ inclusive, and just like using proper pronouns and having like a gay black character is like your second lead, and with Rosa being bi, they were just they were really good, and especially with Jake being this really immature character. It would have been really easy to make that character devolve into name calling or something like that, but he gets better as the show goes on, and he was never one to mock or anything like that. It was just very pro gay community, and I really appreciate it.
And I don't remember if it was I think it was season 1, but maybe it was 2. Like, there is a police detective who's like a legend to Jake, who he's just like wants to spend the day with and has full respect for, and it's just like, oh, this guy plays by his own rules, he's so cool. And then he kind of calls Holt a queer or something like that, and Jake is just like instantly like, fuck this dude, and just punches him straight in the face. And it's just like, from the get-go, Jake's like, I don't play that shit. So
yeah, very love that. And then also, like, 2 of Jake's, okay, well, let me start with this. Everybody is Jake's best friend. You can make a account for everybody. It's like his wife, of course, is going to be his best friend. Charles is his best, like, male best friend. Rosa, he even says, you're my best friend in the first episode of this season. They went to the academy together. Gina, he grew up with and went to high school.
Yeah, it's like police best friend, childhood best friend, best friend, which would be Boyle, dad best friend, wife best friend.
Yep. And it's just like,
then there's
Terry.
But
that's just like, they're just, like, Jake would say they're friends, but Terry would just probably go like, we're coworkers. Yeah. So, and it's almost like he's this nucleus, and maybe all of them see him as their best friend, but it's like Jake has 5 best friends. It's very nice. And one nice thing is, not counting his wife, but you take Rosa, you take Gina, and he's friends with both of them, and he has these like really important relationships with both, and he helps Rosa with like her coming out to her family and stuff. And never once did they ever play the, oh, is he having second thoughts on Amy, and maybe he loves Rosa now, or people going, oh, I saw him and Gina, you know, in the back room, and then they came out, their hair was all messed up. Oh, Amy, you got to look out for that stuff. Like, they never played with any of that. It was just Jake has female friends. That's the end of that.
I mean, and you could have easily thought something was gonna, like, not necessarily that something was gonna happen, because it wasn't like played in a romantic way, but there is a part where in one of the episodes, Gina goes like, aren't you forgetting something? And then Jake kind of looks confused, and he like gives her a kiss on the forehead, and she's like, no, pay your bill. But like, that could have been
who raised you?
Yeah. That would have been an episode where like someone on the force saw Jake kiss Gina, and then it's like, oh, do I tell Amy or not? It's like, even though it didn't mean anything, it's just like, that could have been a thing, but it never was. And even Boyle, like, the first season, Boyle was in love with Rosa didn't reciprocate it, and then Boyle was just like, yeah, cool. He like found someone else, and like, they never really brought it up again. Like, they were just good friends and stuff. And then
I think they realized that was a weird pairing that would never work. Yeah. So it's easier to drop it, but it also just comes off as like, yeah, sometimes you get rejected and you move on.
Yep. And even when you had the odd coupling of Gina and Boyle, when they were hooking up, and Gina's like, I'm disgusted by this guy, but like, they know I mean, Gina's a bad person, but ultimately, like, they had respect for each other, and then their parents were dating, and it just felt weird. And Gina was like, you know, I had fun hooking up with you, but you know this was never going to be a thing. It's like, I had fun having sex with you too. Cool. And then they were just done, and like, they never really talked about it. I mean, Boyle would like make reference to it from time to time, but like, any relationship that happened that didn't work out never ended poorly. It was just like, okay, I respect you, you respect me, the end.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so if you had to pick a favorite character, who would you be? I think I know who your favorite character is.
Oh, okay.
And I think...
Damn. I feel like this changed from season to season. A lot like New Girl. It'd be like, oh, this is the Schmidt season. Oh, no, this is the Nick season. This is the Winston season. Never the Jess season. She's the worst character.
Does Coach ever get a season?
No. Coach is barely a character.
No, I know.
Okay, Jess isn't the worst. Cece's the worst, but Cece has really good moments, and Jess, I mean, she does too. We're not talking about New Girl. Forget it. So for this,
after all seasons accumulated, if you had to pick one all time, who was the most consistent, I guess.
It's so hard because it's Jake, but yeah, it's Jake. Holt is really good. Holt's a good second, but I think Holt is best when he's with Jake. Jake is best with anyone.
Right. That's not who I thought you were going to pick.
Oh, who'd you think?
Well, I thought we were going to be on the same page. See, yeah, it's hard because clearly Jake and Holt are the two leads, and they get the best stuff because they are the two leads. And like you said, they work best when they're together. They're dynamic, they're back and forth, their friendship, all that good stuff. But I think my favorite character, who wouldn't have been my favorite character season 1, but has grown with me over time, Amy's the best character. I feel like it's easy to go Boyle because Boyle's jokes always fucking hit. But at the same time, Amy's just that character who you didn't quite love in season 1 because she was the stickler and the dorky one or whatever. But her growth, I guess, especially when she started dating Jake, just being like leaning into the dorkiness and being so funny and adorable, and her willingness to like do these wacky things with Jake and their relationship. I just think Amy's the unsung hero of the show because she has brought a lot of heart to the show and perspective and has helped Jake grow and has loosened up Rosa, and her relationship with Hulk's also really great. Like, I mean, everyone's relationship with everyone's great, but I think Amy is the one that I grew to love the most because she shouldn't have been as funny as she was. She could have easily been written off as like the foil to these characters. She would have been, you know, I actually like Skylar White, where a lot of people don't, but it's like, oh, she's the one who's going to prevent these other characters from doing the fun stuff. But she wasn't. She was the voice of reason, but she was always willing to like go with the team when the time came for it. And I love Amy, and I'll miss Amy. And no one's looked more attractive to me than when she did the high school reunion thing. And like, oh my God. Amy Fermero, no, her name's Amy on the show. Jesus, Melissa Fermero. Melissa Fermero is a vision, and I love her.
Yeah, and like they're supposed to be the same age as me. They're around my age, and so they went to high school around the time I went to high school. So when she went back dressed like that, it just like it took me back. You are right, and I kind of forgot about that, but she's never been cuter with, you know, she like wearing a scrunchie in her hair.
She had a scrunchie and a little choker and like a yellow floral sundress or something like that. She looks so pretty.
Oh my God.
And from that moment on, I was like, I don't like the word simp, but I love Melissa.
And it's funny because like when I watched season 1, I remember being like all about Rosa and just like, the badass, quiet type. She's so great. But then soon as like season 2 rolled around, like, get the fuck out of here, Rosa. It's all about Amy.
Amy's dork dance is so adorable. And this is the other thing I want to talk to you about the finale is Jake gives her a little binder necklace.
Oh yeah.
With like tabs that she could actually like adjust and everything with like his name, her name, and Mac's name and stuff. And
she's upset because he didn't alphabetize it.
But there's a line, and I don't remember what it was, but I turned to my fiance and I was just like, oh my God, like you're my Amy, because she's such a big book reader and dork and everything, and I'm such like this man child and everything. I know everyone always wants to be like, oh, we're this couple, and it's like a lot of times it isn't true, but I felt watching Jake and Amy's relationship was mirroring a lot of her and I's relationship, and just how like smart and organized and put together she is, and how much of a dorky Mario Kart loving nerd I am, and like I'm the kind of person who would buy an NFT without understanding what an NFT is. I don't have any money in NFTs, but just like watching the show, I just like, I don't know, their relationship just reminded me of mine, and I really loved them together.
Yeah.
So
we forgot to mention in the final episode that like Amy plays Jake and makes him think he was in a coma for like 7 years and stuff, and it's like a funny bit, but you know it's fake. But when she blows the walls, oh my God, she looks so good. She's just like staring with intensity as they blow, and I don't know if I've seen her more attractive. Like she's just like commanding the scene, and like, look, I just pulled one off, and I pulled the wool over your eyes. Great, go back and rewatch that, and
yeah, and he even says like, I'm so mad and also turned on right now, or something like that.
You Mission Impossible me? Oh, how do you
Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible. How do you say that? Mission Impossible to me?
Yes.
Ugh. I bet he took that line a bunch of times. You Mission Impossible to me? Oh, that sounds real clunky.
But anyway, I will miss Jake and Amy and the entire cast, really.
So, is this the best Sure show? It's kind of unfair because he only has been the creator of 2 and just worked on Parks and Rec, right?
No, he created Parks and Rec, The Good Place, and he didn't. Well, he produced this. The guy who was the janitor, that's not Mike Schur.
Oh, okay.
So, but I mean, let's just include. I mean, The Office was Greg Daniels' show, but Mike Schur got his start on there, and then he made Parks and Rec, and then he made The Good Place. Yeah. I mean, he also made that show about the bartender in the backyard or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that
canceled, right?
That got canceled in one season. But let's just say if Mike Schur was a producer on it, we'll just call it his show. I would say that Parks and Rec is better than Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Not only because it had the unfair advantage of doing the documentary style where you can just like joke. I mean, this show had jokes a second as well, but I think just the format of Parks and Rec lended itself to comedy a little bit more. But also it nailed the finale more, and also every single one of the people on that show went on to superstardom, where I don't think anyone outside of Andy Samberg is going to be a superstar from, like, they all had successful careers except for Rosa, and I mean, I think Melissa did some little stuff. Like, they're all going to have fine careers going on, but Andy Samberg is the only, like, star on the show. But, like, Terry Parks and Rec made 10 superstars.
Sure, yeah. But, I mean, is that the show's doing, or is that just a testament to good casting?
Sure, both. But, you know, I think Parks and Rec will stand the test of time, and I think I could see Brooklyn Nine sort of trailing off as the years go by, especially, like, Parks and Rec was about politics, but it never made people angry with its politics.
Yeah, because it was more about, like, how do we navigate politics when everybody in the public is the dumbest people in the world. So
I think Parks and Rec is still the top of the shows, but then it's Brooklyn. But
The Good Place is so good.
See, this is where do you go with comedy over heart? I think in terms of heart, The Good Place blows them all out of the water. Like, The Good Place made me think and feel things about philosophy and the idea of being human and emotions, and that I wasn't even a big fan of that show from the jump, but when I tried it again, I love The Good Place. I would say if you're looking for comedy, Brooklyn Nine-Nine beats The Good Place for sure, but if you're looking for something with a little bit more charm and heart and emotion, depth, yeah, Good Place beats Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But Brooklyn Nine-Nine's cast is also bigger, and they're all great. So I would give the edge to Brooklyn Nine-Nine solely because it did more than The Good Place did.
Yeah, I think, and we both agree The Office is the worst out of all.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
I like The Office, but The Office is a cringe fest, and I hate cringe.
Yeah, I get that. And it's funny because I've seen more of The Office than anything else. Like, Good Place, I only went through one time. Brooklyn Nine-Nine only went through twice. I probably have gone through Parks and Rec three times, but The Office I've seen a million, because it's just on Comedy Central constantly. It's just on. It's good background show. But, like, people always rag on me when I say Parks and Rec is better than The Office, and it's like, it is absolutely. Like, every character is better, and they all, like, love each other so much. And I think that's one of the things I love about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, is just how much they are a family. And even if, like, maybe Tom's kind of a shitty person and they fuck with Jerry and stuff like that, they all have each other's backs in their own way. And it is a well-crafted show, where Office seems like it's seat of their pants, sort of. So it's hard to rank, because I would probably I'd probably have the same ranking as you, but it's like, if you're going for laughs, I think I would put Brooklyn Nine-Nine first. I think it has some really funny jokes, and it'd probably be like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, then Parks, then Good Place. But if you're going for, like, well-written, story-based thing, Good Place is number one. But if you're looking for, like, a good combination of both those things, then it's Parks and Rec. And I think it's like, you get a lot of A and a little of B, and a lot of B and a little of A. Well, Parks and Rec has good mashing of A and B. So I think it wins kind of by default.
I think the other thing that takes Parks and Rec to the top for me is I've always liked characters who are just good leaders, who, even when they fuck up, the people behind them know, like, this is the person I want to follow. And Amy Poehler's character was that. So, like, everyone defended, like, no one liked Michael Scott, but they defended him because he loved them more than anything. But everyone followed Leslie Knope because she was a good leader and she loved them unconditionally. Like,
and she made them better.
Yeah, and she made them better. Like, even when she was being insane and like, this should have been the thing that goes like, okay, you need to like stop. They're like, well, I know she's in a bad place right now, but she's going to get back to being the person who is the most loving person and will always do the most for other people. Michael Stott didn't really care. Like, I mean, he cared about his coworkers, but because he just, I feel like, liked to be the center of attention and like liked being the boss. It wasn't about doing a good job and being a good leader. It's just like, I just want you guys to like me.
Yeah. Yep.
Even though that there is episodes where Michael Scott shines, you know, and all that stuff, but
he's very funny, but it's funny because he's so awful.
Yeah, I would, if you told me I could never watch The Office again, I wouldn't be upset. But if you told me I could never see another episode of any of these other shows, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Where it's like, Good Place, I don't know when I'll ever return to that, just because it is not as episodic.
Yeah.
You are following a bigger story. I think if I was to introduce someone to one, that's the one I'd want to show them, because then it gives me an excuse to go through it. Whereas Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Parks and Rec, you can just hop in at editing time and take it out of context. One thing I want to bring up about Brooklyn Nine-Nine and why it's so good is go back and rewatch that first season. They knew these characters from day one. They knew, sure, people change, they evolve, they get better, but like Amy is still Amy. It's just Amy doesn't know Jake as well. Like, she's relatively new compared to the 9 years that they were together. So it's like they don't have a relationship yet, so it makes sense for how they're acting. But like, Boyle is Boyle, Jake is Jake, Holt is Holt. Like, everybody has already locked down these characters from episode 1. It's crazy, because you go to episode 1 of Parks and Rec, Leslie Knope isn't even the same character.
I do not love the first season of Parks and Rec.
Yeah, it's because they were saying, let's emulate The Office and make her a cringy, annoying boss. And then they realized, okay, let's pull back and, no, let's actually make her competent. So, but even if you go to like season 2, they're not as the same, especially like Ron Swanson or
that
Andy.
fucker Mark Brandanowitz there too.
Mark Brandanowitz. I mean, yeah, I really wish he would have came back in the season finale.
Yeah, he should have.
Yeah.
Even if he was just like a homeless dude who like lost everything and they just drove past him or something, like just...
Yeah, and he's like, Leslie? And they're just like, who are you? I don't know.
Yeah, something.
Something. Yeah, so tune in next week for our Parks and Rec breakdown. We're going to do every episode from season 1 to season 7.
It's going to be one of those marathon Twitch streams.
Yeah, 24 hours.
24 hours just talking about Parks and Rec.
That's how you do it. Don't try to like play video games the whole time. Just pick a show with a ton of seasons and like watch an episode and then talk about it. And watch an episode and talk about it.
One thing we didn't talk about, and I mean, we can cut it if we want, just because we've gone way longer than I thought. But I just want to talk about it for us, whether you keep it or not. Something we guess we've touched on before, not on here, but season 5, episode 14, The Box, the greatest episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really love this episode. It's a shame that not everybody is in it. You know, it's only Holt, Jake.
I think the opener might have had.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone.
they may be credited as being in it, but they weren't part of the case.
Yeah,
at
not
all.
in the other 21 minutes of the episode.
Yeah, and is it Sterling K. Brown?
Sterling K. Brown.
Yeah, that's got to be great to like just have a one episode, you know, appearance.
And I think he won an Emmy for it too.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Damn.
When I was doing checking on notes and stuff in the comment section, it's just like, yeah, Sterling K. Brown won awards for this episode. Damn. Which is, you know, one off. And I mean, there's always the Emmy for like special guest appearance in a comedy, and I think that's the Emmy that he won for it.
That's awesome.
I mean, he's a fantastic actor in general, but he played this sort of crazy
dentist,
crazy smart dentist who had an answer for everything Jake threw at him, and Jake's recurring decline, insanity, like just trying anything to get this guy to say anything to help him solve this case.
This isn't the one where he takes the guitar and just goes, ah!
That's the invention of that bit, yeah. And yeah, I love that joke. And what's funny about this episode is that It stars Andre Brower, who was one of the leads of a show called Homicide: Life on the Street, which they did an Emmy-winning episode about two detectives in an interrogation, and the entire episode takes place in an interrogation room, and it's one of the best episodes of television ever. In my opinion, I love this episode. I mean, obviously it's played in a serious way, and you know, you're not sure, like, you spend an hour with this guy and you're not sure if he's going to break, you're not even sure if he's the right guy, but they just keep trying new things to get this guy to talk, and this is the comedy version of that, and they're both just fantastic, and it's just weird that they both star the same guy.
Yeah. And is he playing a cop in that?
Yeah, he's one of the Holt, well, I can't remember his detective name on Homicide: Life on the Street, but he was the guy no one liked because he was always like so intense and like wanted to solve cases and like didn't care about anybody else. He just wanted to do his job, and I can't remember if he was necessarily like by the books, but he was just like, he was the hard-nosed detective who by any means wanted to just like crack the case, and so he had to partner with a new guy. This was, I think, season 1. And this was the new guy's first big case. It was the murder of a little girl. And so he had to partner with this guy who didn't like him, he didn't like, but they both had to work together to crack this guy, or try to crack this guy to see if he was the one. And ultimately, they weren't able to get him to confess. They don't know for sure if he's the guy. He was just like the best suspect they had. And they're like, if we can't break this guy in the 8 hours we have him, this case is over with. And they don't do it, and the case is never solved.
Damn.
I mean, they maybe solved it by the end of the series. I never watched the entire series.
But not at the end. Where
by the end of the episode, they like leave the room, and I think maybe he goes to the little girl's funeral, because I think it was that they were having a funeral that day when they were interrogating him, and he just goes to the casket and he's just like tearing up because he's like, I couldn't solve your murder kind of thing. Or maybe that was the following episode, but just that whole sequence is just fantastic. It's the greatest episode. Like, you can just watch that episode and not see the show and be like, holy fuck, this is good. Because it was like, that show was a precursor to The Wire and Law and Order and like all that other stuff.
That's like to like, you got to watch this episode, award-winning, great, and you watch it, and then it's like, oh, I can't wait to watch the rest of it. It's like, well, none of it's going to be as good as that. So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how the rest of the series is pretty well received of its time and everything, and I would love to watch it. It's just, it's not, I don't think it's playing on any streaming service. I could be wrong. Like, it's one of those gems, it's like critically loved, but no one like has. So anyway, the box, just fantastic, and it just ends really well with him actually getting the guy to confess, and Holt and Jake just walk out, and he's just like, I'm proud of you, Peralta. And just one of those nice like father-son moments, and it could have been like the end of both of their careers kind of thing, because I think the guy even like got him saying like, oh, you've not falsified evidence, but like you lied to me and the lawyer was there. I don't know, but just, I love the box, and
yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. All right, WRPL. Stone Cold Steve Boxes.
Okay, well, that was a long one, and hopefully I'm able to cut this down to make it a little more...
You can just make it a two-parter, man.
Oh my God, I don't want to get into the habit. I mean, regardless, I have to cut it way the fuck down, no matter what. I have to go through, the 3+ hours, almost 4 hours that we have recorded here to get it down to, even if I wanted to cut it to two parts. But, well, thank you for sticking around and listening to this one, because I know most of it was just me talking and recapping episodes, and maybe we shouldn't do so many recap episodes.
I think, especially with the amount of shows we watch, I think we just do... We don't do a recap of the episodes, but a recap of the season.
Yeah, and just hits and misses.
Highs and lows,
like
yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind talking about what if, but what can we say about that hasn't been said by a million other YouTube
Yeah, Marvel's
creators.
Pretty much the tapped well.
Yeah. So, thanks again for joining us in the Whirlpool. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we're at WRPLpodcast@gmail.com and at WRPL Podcast on Twitter. Let us know what you're consuming. Until next time, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
Goodbye, everybody.
Are you ready?
I think, yeah. Okay, do you want me to look at you or not?
Do whatever you want, man. I'm not really worried about it.
Oh, Steve, you're so good at this.
I I hate you.